Call the meeting to order. We have any special attentions? Councilman Carroll? Anybody? I do. Councilman?
Thank you. Actually, I have two then. First off is a former city employee, retired after over 25 years of service, Mr. Johnny Raya. Mr. Raya worked in various jobs throughout the city, but was most known for his boxing program that he started in 1972 in the recreation department. And so he passed away last week, so I want to keep him in our prayers. And then second is the passing of one of our former 24 judicial judges and a friend to a lot of people that I've talked to just today, Judge Wiley Rothschild, who is commonly referred to in a lot of places as the singing judge. He did a great national anthem. So he's passed away, and so we certainly want to remember him and his families. Thank you.
Anybody else with special intentions? I have one. I kindly ask that you pray for former State Senator Ben Nevers as he has a suspicious mass and faces a serious surgery next week. I have known this man to be a compassionate and sensitive lawmaker who did a tremendous amount of good for the citizens of our great state, our parish, and our city. Please keep him and his wife, Ann, and his family in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you. Councilman Segura, if you lead us in prayer.
Thank you. Please prepare yourself as custom. Let us bow our heads as we open up in prayer this evening. Lord, we thank you for this day as we recognize it as National Day of Prayer. This year's National Day of Prayer theme is unity. Lord, we pray for unity in our city, our state, and our country. May you bring unity to our nation so we can live together in love and peace and work together for a common good. We ask you to touch our lives and lead us in your ways. Align our hearts with your will and keep us all in unity. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Councilman Reyna, if you can lead us in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum this evening. Councilman Klein is absent tonight. In accordance with Council Resolution Number B14550, please be advised that all cellular telephones, pagers, beepers, and other devices of this nature must be deactivated or silenced throughout the council meeting. Under the consent agenda this evening, we have item 1, approval of minutes, the council meeting of April 19, 2018. Item 2 is approval of alcoholic beverage permit applications. We have none. Item 3 is approval of bingo and public gathering applications. Item 3A is application number 2087-18, Cornerstone Chemical Company, to hold a public gathering on May 12, 2018 from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. for the purpose of a company picnic at Lake Town in Kenner, Louisiana. Item 3B is application number 2088-18, Kenner United Incorporated, to hold a public gathering on May 19, 2018 from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. for the purpose of a Clean Up Kenner Day registration lunch at Veterans Park, Memorial Park, Pavilions 3 and 7. Item 3C is application 2089-18, Ralph J. Bunch Braves Alumni Association, to hold a public gathering on October 6, 2018 from 12 noon to 5 p.m. for the purpose of a picnic at Veterans Park, Shelter Number 1. Item 3D is application number 2090-18, Crescent City Cruisers Classic Car Club Incorporated, to hold a public gathering on May 18th, June 15th, July 20th, August 17th, September 21st, and October 19th, 2018 from 6:30 p.m. to 11 p.m. for the purpose of a classic car cruise night at Lake Town. Item 4 is correspondence, reports from the mayor, CAO, or department heads. Item 4A, at the request of the administration, a report from Mayor Zahn.
Mayor Zahn, you have the floor.
Thank you, Council Chairman. Before I give my report, I want to congratulate our latest re-election to the City Council, Councilman Greg Carroll from District 1. Congratulations. In talking about newest and latest things, I want to have these people stand up. You all met them in the agenda meetings just a short while ago. We have some new directors and some familiar faces that have moved up a little bit. First of all, we have, which y'all have helped us with, KTV. I've been asked when we're going to actually make those appointments. We're in the process of making that. We started with the assistant director first, who was able to start first, Ms. Robin Dallafour. She's the assistant director of KTV. In recreation, we have made some changes there. Mr. Chad Pitfield comes from the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office. He is here with us. He is the director of recreation. And a name that we've known for a very long time, and the city of Kenner knows, Diane Long is now the assistant director of recreation. I want to thank them for taking on these jobs. They'll be good jobs. There'll be some tough times that they have to deal with, as we all know that, but I appreciate their commitment to the city of Kenner and their past commitment to public service. We have some changes that are going on because of this weekend. I know that we probably made that call kind of early on Cinco de Mayo at Lake Town, but when you have to sit here and look at a rental stage coming in Lake Town and tell that person that's coming in from out of town, you have to make that call whether or not you're going to do the event. So I guess bad news to Lake Town District 3, but good news to you, Councilman Carroll, in District 1. We're going to have a mini Italian Heritage Festival, actually, for Cinco de Mayo on Friday, tomorrow. So it's not Cinco de Cuatro, it's Cinco de Mayo still, mixed with movies in the park, because we usually have movies in the park on Friday night. So the good news is we didn't waste any money. We were able to capture all the bands that we had for Lake Town for Cinco de Mayo. They were able to transfer over to Friday night and make one big event in the parking lot. We are going to close off the street, kind of like we did 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago for Italian Heritage Festival, and it will be a nice event. So making sure that if people see this before tomorrow night, please come to Rivertown, not Lake Town, District 1, tomorrow night for Cinco de Mayo Festival and also Music in the Park. Nice. Which leads to Saturday night in Rivertown. You are going to lose that. We're going to cancel movies in the park because of the screen, because it's a problem putting that screen up. So we will not have movies in the park this Saturday night only. In Rivertown, there's a lot going on in Rivertown. In Rivertown also, we're going to do a grand reopening of the farmers market on Saturday morning around 9 o'clock. We have, Mike Ince has been working very closely with the councilman of the district, Greg Carroll, to make sure, and also my administration, to make sure we have about close to 20 vendors that should be out there Saturday morning. So please join us on that. All right, that's all the good news. Here's the bad news, and you've heard me say this, and I have not given, this is for Mr. Morello besides for you, because he asked me about a sales tax report. Our sales tax has been up and down throughout the year. We're dealing with a lot of blighted property throughout the city of Kenner. We're dealing with shopping centers, unfortunately, in District 4 predominantly, that have some problems. We've got to get a hold of that, and you've heard me, and you've seen code enforcement, you've seen the councilman, you've seen the council people, everyone working together to make sure that we tackle this blight. Because of the blight, because of the lack of our businesses, April sales tax are down 0.8% over April of last year. We are down 0.66% for the year, which is, for this year, which is about $190,000 under last year's collections. It was okay. It was, like I said, up and down is how I started this. It was okay. It had problems. Back to some problems again. We've got to get a hold of it, guys. And we are, I know all of you all are trying. We're trying. I think some of the things that we're talking about may work in the future. You have something coming before you tonight that shows that hopefully the Esplanade Mall is moving forward with development. I know it's a little bit negative on this project, but we're trying to attract businesses, and we're trying to make the aesthetics of the city of Kenner appealing to the people that are outside of Kenner, and also, of course, our residents, but our businesses to come into the city of Kenner. It did come up in the agenda meetings that we are looking at a lot of businesses coming in, and I have been bragging that we all are doing a great job on the ribbon cuttings. We're cutting ribbons, but we need more. And Lamarck Ford is coming, CarMax is coming, but we got to get a handle on these three areas of District 4. Working very, very closely with Councilman DeFrancis being the former councilor of that area. Councilor-elect George Brannigan has been fantastic. He has jumped in immediately. He's met with numerous civic associations, either with me or without me. We are floating some ideas out there on how we're going to bring it back. So I appreciate his work. I appreciate your work, Councilman DeFrancis, and each and every one of you all, because it's a problem for all of us. Councilman Wilmot, you've been great with it too, because it's citywide, but we've got to tackle it a little bit better. With that, you know the changes for this weekend, you know the downside about the sales tax, but let's all work together with this council that's left for 2 months and also the new council that's coming in to make some changes here. That's it. Appreciate it, Councilman.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's good point. 6 to 11. Yes. We will actually, guys, we will actually take the stage at 6:45. They'll kick off at 6, but we're going to take the stage for the band that was planned for us to take the stage for 90 Degrees West at 6:45. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir. That will conclude the consent agenda tonight. I have a motion by Councilmember Wilmot, seconded by Councilmember DeFranchis. Council members, please vote on the consent agenda. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Under the public appearance agenda tonight, we have item 9, public hearings for final passage. Item 9A is a public hearing regarding resolution number B16893, a resolution calling a public hearing to determine whether the structures located at 1401 West Esplanade Avenue, parcel A3A1-A1, Canesboulet subdivision, Hollywood Center 9, Kenner, Louisiana, shall be abated by repair, rehabilitation, demolition, or removal. I have a motion by Councilmember Segur, seconded by Councilmember DeFranchis, to open the public hearing. Council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0. We're now in a public hearing. The Code Enforcement Department has a presentation tonight. If we could listen to their presentation.
Thank you. The structure is a grade pile supported cinder block structure bearing municipal address of 1401 West Esplanade. It was formerly known as the Hollywood Cinema 9. The property is owned by Gateway at Esplanade LLC. In April 2018, it was determined that this property was unsafe and dilapidated under the building codes for the city of Kenner, as well as Section 5-57 et al. Of the Code of Ordinances for the city of Kenner. On April 2nd, 2018, a notice was sent certified mail to the property owners advising them of the property and building violations. City of Kenner contracted the services of an engineer. It is noted by the report of the engineer retained by the City of Kenner provided the following reasons of inadequate maintenance, dilapidation, and abandonment. All utilities have been disconnected, structure is abandoned, all of the windows and doors around a perimeter property have been boarded up and secured. Vegetation is severely overgrown throughout the property and on the structure itself. The north side of the awning at the front of the structure has severe rot in the wood sheathing. Settlement has occurred around the perimeter of the pile-supported structure, thus causing voids and sinkholes to form. These could lead to harboring of vermin on this site. The settlement has also led to the separation of the northern front steps leading to the former entrance of the property. Wood sheathing covering the southern entrance door at the front of the property shows recent evidence of being tampered with, where it was pulled back to gain access to the interior of the structure. Based on our visual observations, the structure is a serious public hazard, and we recommend that the city take the steps necessary to declare it a public nuisance, have it abated by demolition, or brought up to current code and ordinances. The middle and corner column to the second-story porch on the west side of the property is also missing. These missing columns make the porch structurally unstable. The remainder of the building poses a safety hazard due to the current condition of the structure and the front porch. Based on the report of the engineer, the structure is a serious public hazard, and the report recommends the city take the steps necessary to declare it a public nuisance. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to address the council tonight on item 9A. Please come forward to the podium.
Someone's coming forward, if you will, over here to the microphone.
Like it used to be, though.
Yeah. Name and address.
Good evening. Bill Becknell, 3445 North Causeway Boulevard, Metairie. In 2015, I represented the developer on their application, which, as many of you know, took quite a while. At that time, they were having problems between the Clancy family wanting to sell the property, the Esplanade Mall having some problems, and us trying to get access road use. My clients, in their presentation to get the application passed, which thankfully you all passed in 2015, spent significant amount of money they can address. They're here tonight. In terms of drawings and schematics and everything else to build an apartment complex, which you all are familiar with. They're clearly going to tear down the building. Having lived in Kenner for a number of years, a long time, I totally agree with getting rid of blighted property, you know, and I actually did some work years ago on the pavilion, which I know has become controversial. I did a lot of the out parcel work when Darrell Berger owned that. Unfortunately, that property is going into disrepair, and I don't know what the problem is. But this particular property is approximately a 9-acre tract that they took title to in December. They've been trying since 2015 to purchase the property. They had an agreement to do so. Because they required the access road to get to the apartment complex, it got held up by Simon Properties, and there were questions about using Simon Property security. And then Simon got involved in negotiations to sell the mall. As you all know, it was ultimately sold. And I guess the quick summary is they purchased the property in December. I was not involved in meetings that I'm told they might have had with either you council members, the city attorney, the staff, or the mayor's office, but it's totally and fully their intention to demolish the building. They have no intention of selling the building because they already spent so much money to purchase the property, the 9 acres, and in fact have spent a tremendous amount of money on architectural drawings, legal fees, and construction costs. So we're asking tonight, you know, that we not be required to demolish the building on a short term. They're willing to come up here and discuss when they can demolish it. We have a letter, our loan's in process, and it takes some amount of time to get this type of loan done because it involves some additional financing, pilot program, those kind of things. So we fully intend on demolishing it. Obviously, the city can demolish it and place a lien on the property, spend the money if you choose to do so. I have the list of what the code enforcement department said are the violations. Some of those violations are pretty much aesthetics. I understand the citizens being concerned, having been a citizen out here, about property being run down, not kept up, the landscaping, potential hazards, and my client can address what can be done to fix those. And I do agree that there should be some timeline that by some date, the building will be demolished. So what I'd like to do is have my client come up and answer questions that you all may have, since I have not been involved in this since 2015 when it was passed. And we fully anticipated when that happened that it would be a short-term process for them to take title. Unfortunately, between the Esplanade problems and then, you know, trying to buy the property from the Clancy's without access became a problem. So I'm gonna have them come up here, if it's okay with you all, and explain. They have a letter from their bank explaining why, if they start work tomorrow, if you know construction, you have to file a no-work affidavit to get your loan. The bank wants to have the first lien on the property. If you start having supplies delivered, demolish a building, do whatever, it's gonna affect their first lien. So that's part of what we're asking for. We're not asking to not have to demolish the building, but I do want them to answer the mayor's questions, your questions, and try to satisfy the residents who I know were made numerous promises about this development. It is going to be a nice development, but I'd like Lacey Howe, who's one of the developers, to come up here if he could and discuss the status of the financing, demolition, those kind of things, and what we may be able to do if, in fact, we're able to get some type of deferral with a fixed timeline for my client to demolish the building, as opposed to the city.
Thank you, Mr. Becknell. And if you will, sir, name and address for the next fellow. Thank you.
Lacey Howe, 8725 Marquez Lane, Baton Rouge. And as Bill said, I am one of the, there's 3 developers of this property, and it's a 265-unit multifamily property that we're going to move forward with. We did meet with the mayor's office twice this year about the concern with the building being overrun with, being old and dilapidated. We knew when we bought it, we were going to tear it down. I've talked to our lender, we have talked to our lender numerous times about trying to we'd rather take it down now and start work. And they said, absolutely not, and we got a letter from them that told us that we can't because it puts us, it does, what Bill said, there's a no work affidavit that you have to sign when you start a loan in process. And so we're just not able to do it for that reason. But we do get that it's not a pretty sight there right now. It's not been a pretty sight for a long time. And we're willing to do some stuff to help rectify that portion of it while we go through this loan process. And so I'm open to answer any questions you may have about what we can or what you want us to do and what we can or can't do.
Councilman Reno, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do have a couple of questions on this. When you had the conversations with the city, with the administration, did they explain to you about the neighbors complaining about the rodents and all that stuff?
They did, and we went into the project with an exterminator, and there are no rodents on the property whatsoever.
Okay, do you have documentation where y'all paid an exterminator to do
We can
that?
provide that for you. But actually, Lenny Klein went with us when we went with the exterminator, so the councilman was present when we did that.
Okay. And what about our code director said something about over the overhang, one of the columns is missing. Were you aware of the fact that that was missing and it possibly could cause, a safety concern?
I was not.
Okay. And as far as the plywooded doors and access to the building, were you aware that that has been pried off and possibly somebody's been going in there?
No, it's not pried off. We had a lock on it we couldn't unlock. We had to break the handle ourselves so we could put a new lock on it and go with the exterminator in there at that time. It is completely secure.
So it's secure?
Yes.
Okay. I think that's all the questions I have. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman DeFranchise.
Council President, may I ask a question of the mayor, please?
Absolutely.
Mr. Mayor, we talked about extermination. If you remember, I'm the one who brought it up to the administration, and we had a nice, long discussion about the problem. So the question is as follows. When Councilman Klein and the others went in, was it after the extermination was already done or prior to the extermination? Because that was what I just heard seemed like it wasn't very clear.
Right.
And I want the public to really understand what occurred.
That's a good question, because my understanding is that that issue came up probably before I got here. Councilman Klein went in with these gentlemen after I was here, so that was confirmed at that point when they hired another exterminator, or at least you all hired an exterminator, because the former property owners is where you had an issue
Yes.
with dealing with that. So yes, there was rodents, and this has come up at debates and stuff.
I just want everyone to understand what occurred.
The rodents were in it, and you were talking about tending the building
Yes.
to exterminate the rodents.
Yes,
Or
sir.
whatever they had. That was never done because they took care of it.
Right.
When these gentlemen went in with Councilman Klein, probably right sometime in January or February?
It was March, first week of March.
March, okay. They went in there and they would confirm there was no rodents, that with an exterminator, to make sure that there was no rodents in the building.
At that
So
time.
yes, you're right, there was. They got rid of them, went in, reconfirmed, they're going with these new owners.
And we wanted to make sure that the public understood that we did our due diligence in making sure that the building was rodent-free before anything would be done.
You did that.
Well, we all work together.
No, but
One
you did that
person-
first, and then we came back
Right.
and confirmed it with Councilman Klein.
Exactly. So I wanted the people to feel comfortable that we did our due diligence in making sure that that transpired in the correct order.
Absolutely. But just for the record, if the building was to get torn down, whatever this council
Right.
decides to do, we're not going to say that rats don't pop up from someplace else.
We
So, I mean,
understand.
it would just be unfortunate for this administration, this council, that all of a sudden, a family of rats decides to visit Canes Brûlée.
We understand, but we
No,
are
I'm
feel
just saying.
relatively confident that we have taken care of the problem as best we
Absolutely.
can.
As per the exterminator. I'm not an exterminator, neither are you. As per
Well,
the
I've touched your
exterminator.
word, Mayor. But anyway, there was something else that you and I discussed, and I've also discussed it with the developers, and that is, since December, at the end of December, so we're only talking about January, February, March, and April, really nothing has been done on the outside to address the blight. And we did have that discussion, and my question was, you know, if we had a regular property owner for 4 months do nothing about the blight outside their home, we would already be after them. And so I wanted them to understand that this administration and this council has been more than understanding and not having gone after and putting fine after fine after fine for not having addressed the problem. And yes, we do understand for years. I haven't been the councilman from District 4 for 4 years. I was the councilman at large. And I do understand this has been an ongoing problem. But nevertheless, all I can tell you is that since you've all owned it in 4 months, and you admitted that that was a problem that perhaps should have been addressed, that at least the outside should have been should have been taken care of. And we also understand that this is not an emergency demolition that we're doing. We want to make that very clear to the public. An emergency demolition is when the building is about to fall down, and I think Ms. Fauché could explain the difference if, again, with Council President permission, that you could expand the difference between what we're proposing and what would be proposed if this were a building that was dangerous to the public per se. Would that be all right, Mayor, if Ms. Fauché?
Yeah, if you don't mind, she has no problem answering your questions, but that's more of a legal, so I want to
Okay,
make sure that we
absolutely then.
yield that to you legal, Ms. Roussel.
Absolutely. I'm sorry, Ms. Roussel.
Original process or the original legislation that we put on was through emergency
Right.
procedures, which, requires that the property be in danger of collapse or structurally unsound. So this building is not structurally unsound. This process was through the normal demolition procedures that code follows that appear, on the agenda, basically every council meeting. So notice to the owners, but it is not through the emergency procedures that we're doing this. It is through the regular, normal demolition procedures.
And that makes it a little bit more possible for us to work to address the situation in the best way possible. Am I not correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Council President.
Councilman Reyno, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have two questions. One's for our code director, Rick Walther. So we had an engineer come out and check this building to see if it was structurally sound. In your report, you gave some things that aren't sound, like the column that's missing. But in the engineer's report, is the main structure sound? Or did they note anything in that report that you know of?
No, the report pretty much details the front awning area, which would be the main entrance to go into the theater. That's where the weakness is with the plywood sheathing. The wood has rotted, and then that column's missing that's supporting it. So is the building structure sound? Yeah, it's a cinder block building. It's not going to go nowhere.
All right, thank you. And as far as the loan on the building, y'all have applied for a loan to build the new apartment complex.
Yes.
And where is that loan at? What stage is that loan at with the lenders, with that application?
Still going through the underwriting process.
Okay, so there's no time frame that you can give us as to, they say they're going to have a commitment letter to y'all in the next 30 days, 60 days, 90 days?
The way this particular loan program works, there's different hurdles that you have to go over on each timeline. You have a concept meeting, then you have a notice, then you have a pre-app, then you have 45 days after that, then you have a firm app, and then you have another 90 days. It's a process that goes through on that. To have a firm commitment on this loan, for this particular loan, is probably 5 to 6 months out. It could be sooner, but 5 to 6 months out, and then there's another 90 days after that to close.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. board is clear. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming and giving statements. Is anybody else, sir, would you like to give a statement?
Can I just repeat something or
Absolutely.
follow-ups
Sure.
on their behalf? This would have happened a long time ago if we hadn't had the delays in getting the application approved. There was some controversy with Canes Relay, which we understood. We had public meetings with them. Mr. Francis was there, I know. Other council people were there. Finally, we could satisfy the citizens, you know, as far as what would be there, what it would look like. As I said, they've spent a significant amount of money. The building's going to be demolished, I mean, one way or another. Now, I understand the urgency, and if in fact somebody was told, the council, the mayor, whoever, it would happen in 1, 2, 3, 4 months, you know, I was not involved in that, but I understand what the mayor understands or what the council understands. In fact, they have no intention of selling the property. It took them so long to buy it. They've spent a bunch of money to buy this 9-acre tract. If not for the problem explaining the project and getting approval for that, then being caught up with the Esplanade Mall sale and the Clancy family and Access Road problems, I believe that it would have been built by now, which certainly was their hope, paying interest on, well, it's actually, there's a bunch of equity, as I understand it, significant equity. There's been rumors that somebody else, they may want to flip the property. They've spent too much money to flip it to get their money back at this point, I believe. I guess the bottom line is the building's going to be torn down. Whether you tear it down or they tear it down, it has to be torn down. If the code enforcement director, Mr. Walther, says it's sturdy and my client can make enough aesthetic improvements and secure the building so you don't have the rat problem or things like that, and it's not totally structural where it's going to fall and hurt somebody, no children can get inside and get hurt, I would request that somehow we come up with some agreement so there's some time frame while they go through this complex loan program. And then you may recall, we talked about a pilot program at one time with the city, so that's an additional factor in this, I guess. But if we could agree, as opposed to you all demolishing the building or starting the process within a few days or 10 days, whatever it may be, we could come up with some agreement as to a fixed timeline. If we don't meet the timeline, you know, then certainly the city goes forward. I think they can commit they're not buying the property, despite what people may say. They have spent too much money to buy this piece of real estate to sell it. They won't get their money back. So that's all I'm asking. It's up to the city, obviously, but several of you know what happened in terms of the delays in getting the application approved. And I know, like the planning department and other people, council people we met with, between schematic drawings and architectural drawings and meeting with public meetings, you know, and the amount of money and time it took, that's part of the delay. The biggest delay at one point became dealing with Simon Group, who owned the mall, you know, just allowing us access to the road. So I respectfully request that you all at least consider that as an option. Certainly you can do whatever you want. You know, the cost of you tearing it down would be close to what the cost of us tearing it down. If you know, I'd prefer that we be given some time frame within which to work. We would be glad to keep you advised of how we stand with the loan and everything else. I want the citizens of Canes Relay to be satisfied with what we do. We could put up development signs, you know, coming is the mall. We could put up, you know, gates. We could do some landscaping, pick up the trash, mainly aesthetic things, so the building doesn't look like it's looked for 10 years. We inherited this problem, but then it then became our problem because, you know, our project took longer than expected. So that's all we're asking for, and I appreciate your consideration.
Yep. Mr. Becknell, if you can stay right there for a minute, please.
Yes, sir.
I have a couple of lights lit up.
Yes, sir.
Councilwoman Hand, you have the floor.
Thank you, Council President. Well, I was just curious. It sounds like you've had the property for years, and you knew you were going to tear it down. And there were rumors about maybe somebody purchasing it, but it sounds like it's when you purchased the property, you would always plan tearing it down and to build apartments. So now you're holding up on the loan. I mean, there's a problem with the loan. So when did you apply for the loan, and or how long has it been since you knew you were going to do this all the while?
Let me just correct something you said, Ms. Hand. We have not owned the property for years. We signed a purchase agreement, filed an application in 2015. We didn't take title to the property until December 2017. So we didn't own the property. So
Okay.
we couldn't
Thank
apply
you.
for a loan until we owned the property. So my client bought it in December of 2015. I don't know the exact date they applied for the loan, but they did apply as soon as they could. Mr. Howe can explain that. But just to correct what you said, I mean, it is our problem, but we did not own the property for years. We tried to buy it for years. That's why I'm saying in 2015, if everything had gone smoothly, we would have owned it in 2015, or 2016
Okay.
at the earliest. But between the mall and the Clancy family trying to sell it to us, and the mall having their own problems, we got caught up in that.
Thank you for clarifying that. So you applied for the loan like right after in December?
The process was this. We put the project under, when we had the PUD approved in November 2015, we had already been working with Simon about an access agreement. Well, it took them till June to give us an agreement that Simon, Dillard's, Target, and Macy's would agree to. Well, they get to that point, they put the mall up for sale, so we had to, and Pacific Retail took title of the property sometime in September 2016, or somewhere in that time frame. That time frame, they said we'd get it right away. Well, it took us all the way through September of the next year to get an access agreement to go on. We couldn't apply for loans. We didn't have access during that time frame. So at that time, we go to our lender in September, October of last year, and the flood of Houston happened, and our project's in a floodplain. And so they told us not to submit an application, or we weren't going to submit an application until the beginning of 2018, and we knew we weren't going to close till December. And so we said, okay. So we've submitted our stuff to Greystone, all our financial information, all our experience, the plans to go forward in the first month or so. It may have been February 1st, but January, February of 2018 to do this. The process goes from there. They take about 30 days to do their due diligence, and now it goes to the next step. And that's where we are. It should have happened much faster, but it just seems like everybody's slower than they should be. If it came to me, it'd be 5 minutes later, it'd be approved. But that's not where it is. And we would like for it to close next week, but unfortunately, that's not the case.
Well, it sounds like you have good intentions, and
I think we do, and we know y'all do too. We do understand the premise of why this is negative for the city. I mean, we do, and we really want to do everything we could. We have money to tear down the building, okay? We have our equities all in place, but we're just not able to do it because of our loan situation. So it's not about, that's really our only holdup for doing it.
okay, thank you.
Ms. Hand? Ms. Hand?
Councilman Reyno?
Can I explain one thing to Ms. Hand, Councilman?
Sure, sure.
You mentioned also that our problem with the loan, there is no problem. It's an underwriting process. When you deal with a multi-million-dollar commercial loan, I did a hotel development in Houston, and you run into all these other things. You don't need to buy a house. For instance, we applied for a loan to build a hotel, which is 10 years ago, I guess, and the underwriters wanted guarantees through legal opinions that, yes, it's so close to 610 in Houston. Yes, it's, wherever it is. They want guarantees that the access is there. They want guarantees on various other things. So we don't have a problem. It's just the mechanism you have to go to get a multi-million-dollar commercial loan. So I just wanted you to understand that. We don't have a problem, as you said, so.
All righty, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Councilman Reyno, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Bill, were you involved with the agreement that they have with the mall as far as the access to the ring road?
No, sir. What happened was, Mr. Howe develops apartment complexes other places, and so does Mr. Vitale. And what happened was, I was retained to handle the real estate application to change the PUD because I'm familiar with your system. So Mr. Howe has an attorney in Baton Rouge who was working on negotiating the sale with the Clancy family at that time, 2014 or 15 he started. and then also negotiating with Simon Properties. So I was not involved in the access road, although I was able to work out the PUD language with your planning department and then fortunately you all and the planning commission. And once we had the what happened, as you know, Councilman, the Esplanade Mall, I mean, years ago, I did some work for Cadillac Fairview. The mall opened in '84. At one time, they owned it, and they had some minor adjustments to their PUD. Well, when you adjust a PUD, as you know, you have to go back and look at all the ordinances that may have amended that PUD. So my job was to go back and make certain the legislation you all passed corrected anything they had to have corrected in the previous PUD amendments, because this property is part of the mall PUD. So, or separate, they broke it out, in fact. One of the ordinances, I believe, broke it out, but the Clancy family owned all of that. So we had a separate PUD document for this 9 acres when it became a movie theater. That PUD had been amended a couple of times, so I worked with Mr. Abear and your planning department to come up with the correct language for your ordinance, but that was my only involvement. And then I got it through the process. I went to public meetings to explain the legalities and what they were willing to do, but that was my only involvement.
So you can't give us an opinion as to the agreement that they have with the mall right now, whether that, a legal opinion?
No, sir.
Let me backstep a minute. You can't give us a legal opinion as to if the agreement that they have right now with the mall owners, the current mall owners right now, is that a transferable, agreement? In other words, what if somebody else comes in tomorrow and buys the Esplanade Mall? That was one of the issues that y'all brought up. You said that you originally started with Simon Properties and then Pacific Retail bought it. So, so then it was a whole new negotiation. And, I don't know what's in the store in the next day or a month or, 2 months from now. Somebody may come in and say, we want to buy the mall, here's a cash offer, boom, we bought it, and now you don't have an agreement. So I want to hear something about the agreement with
I'm
the...
going to let Mr. Howe explain that. Typically, having done real estate, what would happen, he can explain further. When you do, it's like a servitude agreement, and if you record it, giving you access, could be parking access, the right to cross property, whatever. Once that is recorded, it would run with the land. It's called a predial servitude, not a personal servitude, but he can explain the status of that with his attorney.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The difference between Simon was we never had an agreement reached. So we reached an agreement with Pacific Retail. So we signed the agreement.
Okay, and that agreement carries forth if Pacific sells it and it's sold again and again and again, you have a long-term agreement?
There's two things. There's a perpetual servitude and a covenants that we had to sign. And those agreements do they go with the property when you do that? Okay,
and then I have one other question. Should we decide tonight, we as a council decide to demo this building, and we demo it, okay? And you've said that that's going to affect your loan. So if that happens, then your loan process stops. Does that mean that
I don't know if it stops if you do it. It changes our dynamic significantly.
Okay.
If that happens.
So basically, you do have an option to go back if the lender says, no, we don't want to do it now because of the fact that you demoed this, this piece of the property. You do have an option to go back and reapply for a new loan with the understanding that y'all demoed it and it's paid for and there's no liens on it. Is that correct?
Theoretically, that's true.
Okay. So if that were to happen, and I'm just assuming, if that were to happen and your loan died and you had to reapply, would y'all be reapplying for a new loan? In other words, it sounds to me like we have a lot into this property and we're going to build this. This may just be another stumbling block, but we're going to build these apartments.
To answer your questions, we are very committed to building this property. Yes, we want. I mean, it's good for us. It's good for the city. It's going to be a nice project. It is contingent upon having a loan because we don't have $30 million to go put to do this particular thing. And so we have to borrow the balance of the money to get that done. So to answer your questions, we're committed. I don't know what happens with the process. I don't know if the same lender's going to come back after you do that, and we may have to go to somebody else and have a whole different process. And so we have not broached that subject.
Okay. All right.
Certainly, if you ask me, it's certainly significantly easier for us to get this built without having the property demoed. That's the bottom line.
Thank you. I have one other question for our planning director, Mr. Abear.
Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Abear, the council, and may not be this council, may have been the prior council, approved the PUD for this property.
Yes.
And does that PUD expire? Should they lose this loan and have to reapply for a new loan? Is there a time frame?
I don't believe that there is an expiration period in the PUD ordinance. I'd have to go back and check, but I don't believe, so off the top of my head, I don't believe that that's the case.
Okay, and could this developer decide to sell this development, plans, land, everything that they've done to this point, and still build under that PUD that was approved?
If the use of the PUD does not change, then it can continue. If you change the use, then you're going to have to amend that ordinance.
So it has nothing to do with the ownership?
The ownership, no, sir.
Okay, that answers my questions. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Mr. Reno, I'm sorry.
Sure.
Councilwoman Hand, you have the floor.
My client failed to, but
Let me say one thing first. And, Mr. Reno, one thing that I may not have clarified is that we signed the documents for the escrow agreements, for the perpetual servitude covenant. They're in escrow right now, and they start once we start construction. They get released once we do our loan. So they're in escrow right now.
So has that agreement been filed with the court? I mean,
No,
is it?
It's filed in escrow. Jones Walker holds it until we start our process. So if we don't build it, there won't be any access agreement.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Reno, and the reason for that is when you do a real estate closing, the title company will hold those documents. A title policy would not be issued unless the title company can see, okay, here's the project, here's how you get there. They're not going to allow, an apartment complex to be a title policy issued for the lender unless there's access and other things, easements and those things. What I wanted to mention, Mr. Reno, is in terms of the financing, my client has a letter dated May 2nd from the lender, which explains the problem. It really wasn't a problem with the loan. The underwriting process, when you do these types of developments, it's not only the fact that the lender has certain underwriting requirements, but you're tied up with certain HUD policies, and so you have these layers of underwriting. They have so much equity in the project now, and the fact that they own the property, I can't guarantee that the loan would go through, but there's enough equity there based on what I understand, that the lender will make the loan, or some lender will make the loan. But there's not really a problem. The delays are built into the system. And I think you can
Give that to him.
we'll be glad to share this. If somebody wants to make a copy, y'all can have a copy of it. And that's all I have, sir, unless you have some questions.
Thank you for your patience. Councilwoman Hand, you have the floor now.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. This is just a simple question. So I know you've seen the property and with the weeds and everything. When do you think we can at least, because this is going to take a long time from what I'm
Yes.
hearing. So when do you think we can just see it cleaned up? I mean, that's something you can probably do
We will
tomorrow.
start the process within 10 days. How about that?
Okay.
We'll start the process
Sounds
within
good.
10 days.
Okay, and one other little thing, y'all was saying that the city's been in the loop with what's going on.
We've met with the city twice, with the mayor's office twice, and Rick Walter twice.
Right, okay, because we were talking about it, and we never knew anything that you were just saying tonight
About the.
about what's been going on, just,
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I'll be happy to schedule meetings with anybody to go over what the process has been and give you more detail about where we are and show you the project, and whether it be with the Canes Brulee people, with the city council, with anybody in the office. That is not a problem whatsoever, Ms. Ann.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Howell, do you have a business card that you can give one of the staff?
Yes, I do. I'm not sure
Good.
if I did or not.
Very good. Thank you. And next, we have Councilwoman DeFrances.
I'd like to address this to our city attorney for a second, if she doesn't mind. When we demolish property and there's a lien, that basically means that the city is owed a certain amount of money because of the demolition. Am I not correct? So if the developers were to, and my understanding from what I heard from Mr. Howell a little while ago was that the cost of demolition, were the city to do it versus if they were to do it, was not substantially different. Not substantially different.
That is correct.
So my point is this. If the city were to go ahead and demolish the property, and there was a lien on the property, basically, if the developers paid for that lien, it would no longer exist. Therefore, it really wouldn't have any impact per se on their loan process.
Well, I believe.
I don't see it as a major problem, truthfully, based on that.
I think what would happen is the lien would have to be released and paid before the loan was approved and the
Right.
mortgage was recorded on the property. But is that right, Mr. Bagnell?
Yes, ma'am. And Mr. Francis, if you look at the letter,
Which I just got.
yes, ma'am, any work on the property would be deemed to be a problem with the loan. So it's a question of whether or not, okay, the bank wants a mortgage. Are they going to put out the money before they get their mortgage? Or are they going to put out their mortgage before, because once work is done in the construction business, development business, if you have wood or bricks dumped off at your property, those people can file a lien. You know, so then the bank comes along and they say, wait a minute, you have a materialman's lien. So that's what we're trying to avoid. I mean, you're correct, the costs may well be the same. The only difference would be, I believe, interest runs on your liens. I don't know what the rate is now, but so some interest would build up, which the city would be entitled to.
But again, if the cost is not prohibitive, which from what I heard earlier, the cost was really not a prohibitive cost for demolition. My point is they could pay off the city very quickly and it wouldn't be a problem. And from what I understood earlier from a discussion we had, the value of the property versus the value of the property with the building on it is the same because the actual building has probably a zero value at this time. So the value of the property is the value of the property with or without the building. And therefore, if demolition were to take place, not prohibitive amount, and they were to pay it off, not the bank, but the developers, they would still be in the same position.
They wouldn't be in the
Think
same
about it.
position because the bank's going to say somebody did work on the property, whether it's the city or not.
Councilwoman, I think that's why the owner said that it would substantially change their situation with their lender. So they would probably have to start over. I think that's what Mr.
Yes,
Howell
ma'am.
said.
The problem, the other problem, Mr. Francis, is you all are talking about tearing down the building.
Right.
So I'm assuming a slab would still be there or something might be there because we intend on demolishing the building, removing concrete, excavating the property, possibly loading the property. I don't know what the construction people will require. But to me, you know, I mean, it would cause a problem, not just to me, but it would cause a problem with the bank in terms of additional underwriting if there's an existing lien on the property. I mean, that's basically the problem. The cost isn't the problem. The cost of you doing it or us doing it isn't the problem. The problem is the bank and how they look at that lien.
And basically, though, when we have demolition, we also require them to get rid of the slab, because I know there's a few places where slabs were allowed to remain. The city went after them and said, no, the slab also has to be removed. So we're talking about a complete demolition there. We're not just talking about the building, we're talking about demolition of the building with a slab.
Yes, ma'am.
And I go back to the fact that for 4 months, we've really done nothing, and we should have been doing something. We should have been a little bit more proactive.
And I would
I
say-
think they agree with me, because we had a discussion.
I would go farther than that, having lived in Kenner for 35 years. That building's been empty 10 years, okay? So I don't know why the city didn't take it upon themselves to demolish it before now. I would have. I mean, I always hated that building sitting there empty and was afraid in the end to go in that movie theater not knowing the state of it. So anyway, I'm just saying, you're correct, Mr. Francis, it's been a problem
But
since.
it wasn't empty the whole time. I hate to interrupt you, Mr. Bagnell. For a while, there was where there was a gentleman who ran the theater. And I can tell you, because I was the councilwoman for District 4 at that time, and I would go after him all the time. I made him fix this, and I made him fix that. I haven't been the District 4 councilman for 4 years. And I can tell you, when I was there, the building was not empty the entire time. And I can tell you that I may not have wanted to go in there to the theater because it was in not very good condition, but other people were going there. And so we have to be careful when we say that it was empty the entire time, because that is not accurate. Maybe people thought that, but that is not the case. The building was being occupied. It was being run by a gentleman who had a contract with Duke Papes, with the Clancy family, and he kept the theater open for a long, long time. I can tell you, since I've been gone the last 4 years as councilman from District 4, I'm not going to say that it wasn't, closed it for a long period of time. But while I was there, it was open. And I just want to put that on the record.
And I'm not debating that. What I'm saying is, since I got involved in 2015, the building's been empty, okay? And nobody taking care of it. Once the Clancy's or whoever owned the property should have probably. I don't know what the city did as far as that. Once my client got involved, you're correct, it's been 4 months. They wish they were involved sooner. They would have saved a lot of equity money. But I guess the bottom line is, you have somebody who's willing, as part of their project, they have to demolish the building. I understand, and I agree with the mayor's program. I've seen quite a bit about it. The blight, whether it's Williams Boulevard, which, or the pavilion, having done work in states like Texas where everything is required. They don't have zoning in Houston. I mean, what they have is deed restrictions, but you see people keep up the property. Every development's nice. So I agree with Mayor Zahn's position on blighted commercial property. It should be fixed up. And I feel the same way about people's homes. I know in Chateau Estates, I would get upset if somebody next door to me, would let their grass grow and not take care of it in the city. Occasionally, fortunately, inspectors would come by and write those people up. But I totally agree with the building. I don't like it either, to be honest with you. But what I'm asking is, if there's something aesthetic that can be done and safety-wise that can be done, whether or not the council is willing to work out some type of agreement, because the building has to be torn down. You can't build the project on the 9 acres.
Mr. Mayor, I think you wanted to say something. Am I correct, with your permission, Council President? Because you... Well, I still have the floor. May I give it to the mayor for a second?
Can I answer one thing that you said? The demo is not just of the building, it's the whole parking lot, all the land. So that's what we're demoing for $300,000 on doing that. And I do want to say this, that I do believe, and Jeff and I believe, that our interests are in line. We want to tear down the building too. We're asking for a little time. That's what we're asking for. And that's all I have.
Mayor Zahn, if you will, Councilwoman DeFrances gives you the floor time.
Thank you both. Councilman DeFrancis, I agree with you. You weren't the councilman for the last 4 years, and I wasn't the mayor for the last 6 years. So when you look at this administration working with this council, and I appreciate what Mr. Becknell said, because he would know that we are doing a war on blight, because he does he's a curator for a lot of our blighted properties. So I appreciate your comments too, but I think it's good that the general public knows that while I was away, and no fault to you or anybody else, but it wasn't moving forward, maybe because of a former administration, maybe because of a former council, I don't know. But we have to deal with the problem now, and that's why I agree with you. Let's deal with the problem now. Let's try and get something going. You have people in Kingsville that aren't happy. And I got to tell you, when I hear that if the demolition was not voted on tonight to demolish it, it would still take 10 days to clean up the property. Y'all should be out there tomorrow cleaning up the property. You shouldn't take 10 days. If they give you a break tonight, why is it going to take you 10 days? This is the part that I get irritated with not just these people, but every property that's blighted throughout the city of Kenner. Again, I'll go back to my sales tax numbers. It's affecting everything, guys. So depending on what you all do, look, I'm all for demolition. I've told these gentlemen this already. We may not agree, but if you don't do demo tonight, 10 days, please put that into your legislation, that by Monday, they'll start cleaning up the property.
Thank you, Mayor Zahn. Councilwoman DeFrances, do you have any further questions?
I'm finished, thank you.
finished? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Carroll, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I want to thank Mr. Becknell and the gentleman that are here today. Obviously, this has come to the forefront, and we have to deal with this today. That is why we are here today. That is why the council is here today, to be able to establish a plan going forward, and that's what we have to do. I know someone said that the cost for the property owners and the cost for the city are the same. Well, it may be the same, but as it relates to resources and finances, I believe the budget that you have to tear this building down is much larger than the budget that we have for the city of Kenner. So does it make sense to extend all of our budget for one building, and now we have nothing left for the rest of the city? So if we're able to agree, and like the mayor said, to start this process as soon as we can, I would support a plan to give you guys the opportunity to use your money to tear this building down as opposed to using our money, and we have no more money left for what we have to do for all the constituency. So just based on that, I can support us listening here, because that building with the things that the code department has identified as to ensure that it's safe. And listen, what is safe? Are we safe right now? I don't know what safe is. I do know we've gone through a couple of months ago with the Kenner High School, which we thought was safe, and it turned out to not be safe. But the fact is, we have to do something for this property. The good faith that y'all are here, the good faith that we can start this immediately rather than 10 days or 15 days down the road is something good to hear. But I would not want to use our resources to tear down this building and then we have nothing if you guys are ready to move forward and you understand, and it has been said that it has to come down. So that's my position on that as it relates to tearing down and not tearing down. Who should tear it down? Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. The board is clear. Next person, Mr. Morella. Name and address.
Al Morella, 4260 East Loyola Drive, 5th District, 46 years. Councilwoman DeFrances gave a little commentary on that building, and now I want to give my commentary on that building. And you're right, Councilwoman DeFrances, you was the only council person here at that time. Now, the commentary on that building, yeah, you were here. No. You were in the 4th District. What I'm about to say, the commentary I'm about to give, you were sitting on this council. You were the only one here, this administration. Nobody else was here but you. Now, the commentary on that building is just as sad as the state that it's in right now. So a little bit of commentary here. It was constructed as the Chateau Cinema. It was built as a show. The Chateau Cinema went under. A businessman who lived in my district, in District 5. He took over the building, he took over the business, and it remained a movie theater. Hurricane Katrina flooded it. This man spent $1 million, almost $1 million of his own money. It was the first business that was up and running in the city of Kenner after Katrina. The man wanted to improve his business. He came to this council, he talked to Councilwoman DeFrances, and he talked to Councilman Denopoulos at the time. And he wanted the council and he wanted the administration to sign off on a resolution asking Jedco if they would consider giving him a loan because he wanted to upgrade that business. It was the only show we had at the time, okay? He wanted to put arena seating in there. He wanted to redo the whole facade of the front of the building, okay? Everybody signed off on it, but there was only one problem, including Madam Munez at the time, but there was only one problem. There was wheeling and dealing going on with the administration with another movie operator. And what it turned into be was, it turned into be a bigger movie operator that was connected versus the little guy with the Hollywood 9 who wasn't. So even though that resolution was signed off on, Jedco denied him the loan. First thing you know, here comes the current movie operator we got in here now. And I believe then and I believe now that Hollywood 9, that movie operator was sacrificed for the bigger fish that was connected. Anybody got any comments in it? And if I'm wrong, Councilwoman DeFrances, correct me. I will. Please correct me. Go ahead, I'm ready.
Councilwoman DeFrances, you have the floor.
Freeze my time, Tom Wilmot, whatever I got left.
I will be be very quick. I can tell you, I actually met with Jedco personally because I actually wanted to learn about the Go Zone bond money because that's what he was trying to do.
Can't hear you, Councilwoman. Can you talk into the mic?
Of course, I apologize. I can tell you that when I was the councilman for District 4 after Katrina, you're talking about 2006 and
That's right.
7. I know exactly the time frame you're talking about. I can tell you, I actually went to Jedco and met with them because he was hoping to get the Go Zone bond money. And I wanted to learn a lot about the Go Zone bond money and what the process was. So I actually went over there. And I can tell you that what they told me, and I can only go by what they told me, was that they were looking at the ability of the different people that were applying for the Go Zone bond money to see if they had the resources to pay back some of the money that they were getting. And what they told me, and it had nothing to do with the administration or anybody else at the time or the rest of the council, I can only tell you, I repeat what I was told, was that after and I didn't want to say this publicly, Mr. Morello, because this involves another human being, and it's not our business to talk about those things. I can only tell you that unless that person had the resources that they required, they were turning down the loans, and his was not the only loan for that reason that was turned down. I know of a few others in the city that had applied as well, but that's what I was told by Jedco. So out of fairness to that, to everyone involved, and I think the mayor was here, and he knows he was a friend of that gentleman as well, so I know that he was very supportive as well. It was not because members of this council, including then Mayor Zahn, who was a member of that council, was against the project, because I'll be honest with you, at the time he applied, I don't think he knew, and I know I didn't know there was anyone else interested in bringing a movie theater here. I didn't find out about it. I know who you're talking about, but I didn't find out he was even interested till long, at least 2 years after that gentleman was turned down for the loan. Again, this involves the mayor because he was here on the council. Can we let him address this issue as well, please?
Sure, you can relinquish the floor to the mayor. Mayor's on.
Yes, Councilman DeFrancis was not the only person on this council or in this administration was here at the time, and I do back up what she says. In fact, if you remember, Councilman DeFrancis, we actually did a letter as
Yes.
a council to send to Jedco to back up
Absolutely.
Mr. Vishu. That's who it was, and he wouldn't mind us saying that.
I didn't want to say his name.
Yeah, well, I don't think he even lives here anymore, but he was a friend of all of ours. We tried to help him as being a Kenner resident, a Kenner business person. He did open up quickly after Katrina. He stayed open for quite a while. I think his last problem was shortly after the last hurricane. Not last hurricane, but last hurricane before he closed. He reopened again after that, and then he just got to the point where
couldn't afford
I
it.
believe his wife passed away, because he probably would have stayed there as a less expensive theater. He was thinking about going, at the time when I was a kid, you had a $1 theater, but I mean, he'd have gone to probably like I guess $5 would be cheap today. He was thinking about going to it being a less expensive theater for second-run movies. But we did support it, Mr. Morello. Councilman DeFrancis supported it. You signed a letter along with us, and we sent it to Jedco, but not to discuss his personal business, but I think just there was some issues with financing.
Exactly.
Thank you, though, for your comments.
Thank you, Mr. Morello.
Thank y'all for your comments. Now, I do want to say this.
You have 38 seconds.
That's okay, that's plenty of time. I do want to say this. All it takes, Councilwoman DeFrancis, and I'm not saying you didn't do your due diligence or Councilman Zahn at the time. Remember this, it only takes one person with influence with a hidden agenda to get the job done, even though the majority of the people are trying to help this man. So that's something you want to remember, Councilwoman DeFrancis? Okay? Now, everything I'm saying now, I said that night to Mayor Muniz. And I always believed that this business was sacrificed for the big boy who was connected. And I even had to drag out the name of the movie operator from Mayor Muniz because he was reluctant to say who they were. But I already knew who they were, but I got it out of him. I got him to tell the audience and the public who that guy was.
Thank you, Mr. Morello.
Anybody else? I'm ready. Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brannigan, how you doing, sir?
Doing well. George Brannigan, 608 Cormanier Drive. And I have to say that knocking doors, especially in Canes Brulee, it was evident that the people of Canes Brulee do not want an apartment complex sitting in their backyard. Saying that, thank God I wasn't here, and it's not going to be thrown onto my back. But the bottom line is there's a lot of blighted properties in the city, and there's a lot of them in District 4, which I'm inheriting. And I'm not overjoyed about that, but, you know, there are things that are in motion right now to get this stuff fixed. I was told that these gentlemen acquired the property December of 2017, and then when he was up here, he said it was 2016. So I don't know the exact date, but I believe that, you know, in 4 months, the property should have been cleaned up. If you go, the pictures that you saw on the monitors do no justice to how bad the property is. And I really believe that if you want to take a look at it, go drive by. I drove my Suburban around the back of it, and they have holes behind this thing that you could hide plenty of people in. I think that we need to address the blight problem, and these guys said that in 10 days they were going to address the situation. I really think that it needs to be done quicker. I hate to see the loan get messed up, but the bottom line is, you know, when the residents of an area do not want a particular project, the council needs to listen to them. And basically, I've heard them loud and clear. Every porch I stepped on in Canes Brulee, they let me know how they felt about this project. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Brannigan.
Any questions?
Any questions? Councilman Reyna.
Hey, George.
George? Yeah, one question from Councilman Reyna.
Thank you, Mr. President. George, I know that what you just said, knocking doors, people in Canes Brulee, you know, you felt that they didn't want the project. You do know that there is an approved PUD. They do own the property.
Yeah.
And I asked the question, if for some reason that messed up their loan and they had to reapply for a loan, or could they sell the property? And I asked Mr. Abear, our planning director, and it could be sold. So, you know, us tearing this down right now, it may mess up their loan, but it doesn't mean that they're not going to develop the apartments. So I didn't want the public or you to think that, well, if we tear it down and the deal's done and, you know, something else is going to happen. I don't know. I've heard some information tonight that I was not aware of. And you just said something that I didn't hear. Maybe I missed it. But I heard that they took title to this property in December of 2017. So that's basically roughly 4.5, 5 months ago. Well,
4 months.
a little over 4 months. Okay, so let's say a little over 4 months. Ronnie Lamarck is building a $30-something million new Lincoln dealership with a new used car dealership and an express lane and all. And I can tell you he worked on that a long, long time. So I was not aware that they only went to enact a sale on this property in December. My concern right now is that what signals are we now telling people that want to come to Kenner and do a development? I'm not talking about an apartment development. I'm talking about any kind of development, any kind of major development. People come in, they present plans, they go through a PUD, they go through everything that they need to do. The council approves that. Then they go in and actually purchase the property, and then they actually go into the loan origination stage. You know, I don't know. I'm just looking at this a couple of different ways here. I wouldn't want, honestly, I believe that we ought to give them a one-meeting deferral. It's not in my district. I'm not going to do that. A one-meeting deferral would be two weeks, roughly, till the next council meeting, and let's see if they can clean up, what they said they're going to do. They said they'll get on it in 10 days, so it should be done in 2 weeks. And if they do that, then that's showing that they're moving forward to working with the city. That's just how I feel. Doesn't make me right, doesn't make me wrong. That's just my position right now, and I wouldn't want to send the wrong signal to other developers to say, man, Kenner's really hard to do business with. We don't want to do business with Kenner. So, you know, again, the district councilman, I know you're the district councilman-elect, but the district councilman's not here tonight, so he couldn't ask for a deferral. That would be up to the at-larges. And just wanted to share that with you because you're going to be sitting in this spot in just 2 months. So, thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Councilman Carroll, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to try to just echo what Councilman Reno said. The legislation on the floor addresses the demolition of the property. We are going off into some other things that we should not be talking about. We should be talking about just what's on the floor right now. To mention what the neighborhood says, to mention what people like, and this and that, we're not talking about that. We should stick to what we're here to do right now for 9A. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. We have another gentleman wishing to speak. Name and address, sir.
My name is Edward Nestor. I live at 3349 Antoine Wattigny in Kenner. I'm the president of the Canes Brulee Civic Association. Our position has been and will always be opposition to this entire apartment complex project. We got some very important amendments to it, to the PUD, and we appreciate the council's efforts in getting that done. Our position, I believe, at least the position I'm presenting, we really don't care what delay you all cause this development, whether it's because you've torn the building down and that furthers the loan process, whether not tearing the building down and allowing the process to go. As long as there's, I guess the simplest way to put it, if it's not being built for whatever reason, it may never be built. And that is our position. It always will be our position. And anything whatever the council plans to do or does in fact vote on, it's going to delay it. And that is all we care about. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nestor. And the board is clear. Madam Clerk?
I have a motion by Councilmember DeFranchise, seconded by Councilmember Segura to close your public hearing. Council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, I have a motion. Motion passes 6-0. I have a motion by Councilmember DeFranchise, seconded by Councilmember Segura to approve. Any council members would like to address tonight?
Councilwoman DeFrances, you have the floor.
Yes, we are going to stick to just this one issue at this moment. Let me just say this. I would like to have some input for the rest of the council. Moving forward with the demolition, we can set different dates that we could give the gentleman in question as to by when the demolition, excuse me, we've been talking so much, my mouth is dry, the demolition would take place. So there are two possibilities we have been discussing thus far, and one is a 45-day delay, which would make it, I believe, June 18th, and there's a 60-day delay, which would then make it July the 3rd. I would like to, Council President, with your permission, to allow the rest of the council to have some input and hear what they have to say about what they would favor, and if they would favor either giving them 60 or 45 days to do what they have to do before.
Councilwoman DeFranchise, would you want to propose an amendment to have the effective date of the resolution be June 18th, 2018? I think that would be more appropriate than polling.
I agree.
Okay.
Okay, well,
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember DeFranchise, seconded by Councilmember.
Segura.
would you please read it?
Okay, you want to go
What would
with
you state your point?
Want to go with a 45 or a 60-day?
Some of what I just heard, 45-day, earlier we, were somewhat of an understanding of a 60-day. So if it's being changed to 45, that changes some of our position. So I would second for a 60-day.
Okay.
May I just address that issue? Because Ms. Roussel, you said polling. I really wasn't talking about polling.
Well, I just think it's more appropriate for there to be a motion on the floor, to, up for discussion,
Okay.
rather than having council members talk about what the amendment should be or what the motion should be.
I wanted just to hear what they,
I understood that. She just wanted us to, our input
Because we always give our council the ability to discuss an issue.
I don't think that's appropriate, Councilman Segura. I think it should be after the motion is made, you get to chime in. Well, that's right, but she was making a motion to amend it 45 to, okay.
Is it possible, may I ask a question of our council, our attorney? Is it possible to do the amendment with a blank to for me to fill it in at the end? Sure. Okay, could we do that? Council Clerk, read the amendment, but don't put the date in it. And see, again, I'm not polling anyone. I will make the decision of what I'm going to put in there. I'm being honest with you. I do believe that this council has the right though, to have a discussion on the amendment.
As the clerk in previous history, just so you guys, I'm not telling you what you can do and what you cannot do. Previous history has always been a specific amendment. There will be discussion on the specific amendment.
Right.
It either passes or it fails. That leaves the amendment open. I recommend, let's put a date, talk about the date. If it passes, it passes. If it fails, it fails. Then you can propose your next
Amendment?
timeframe.
Okay.
It either passes or it fails.
You can also amend the amendment, Natalie, so, you know, if
Yeah,
she wants to propose 45 days and then Councilman Segura wants to propose an amendment to that, you can do it that way too. That's procedurally correct.
And you can withdraw the amendment as well.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, so let's go specific. Let's
Okay,
go with
let's
the
change
60
it then to
days.
60 days right now.
Councilman Segura is comfortable with seconding a 60-day.
And that would make it July 3rd, I believe, Ms.
Yes, I'm going to read it into the record if you would allow me, please.
Please.
I have a motion by Councilmember DeFranchise, seconded by Councilmember Segura, to amend Section 1 to add the sentence, "The effective date of this resolution will be July 3rd, 2018." Now we will entertain discussion on that amendment specifically. And that would be a 60-day extension granted to the owners, okay? So Councilman Segura, Councilman DeFranchise, would you like to speak on the amendment?
Just for a moment, again, I am not asking for anyone to poll this, please. Please understand that. Every time we have an amendment, everyone is allowed to speak and give input before we make a decision. We are making individual decisions on how to vote. I am not asking if everybody says one, that's the way. I just wanted to make it clear to the public because they may have thought that's what we were doing. We're not. Every time we have an amendment, every time we vote on an ordinance, everyone on the council has the right to speak and give their opinion, and that's all I was trying to do, give everyone the right to have an opinion and to let that opinion be known. I do want to make one other comment. We do not expect the owners of the property, though, to wait 10 days. By doing this, giving them extra time for demolition, we do expect them to show good faith as well. And the way you show good faith is by starting right away on the cleanup. So if this amendment should pass, let me make it clear that we are passing it if we should, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if it should, we need to have good faith also shown on the side of the developers by starting the cleanup right away. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. Councilman Carroll, you have the floor.
Who's got the floor, sir?
Councilman Carroll.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I will be supporting the 60-day date that we have. But I also want to make clear that even with the 60 days, obviously, we expect some things to happen sooner rather than later. And should we incorporate some of the specific things as it relates to the safety of this building, that they will start immediately to shore up Mr. Walters. The assessment of the building, there are some things immediately that have to be done. I understand the structure is great, but there are some immediate safety concerns that has to be done within this time frame, whatever we determine it to be. I want to make sure that, do we have to add this into this amendment also to say?
Just a point of clarification. I did receive another amendment just recently. We will entertain that as a second amendment after this amendment goes through.
Okay, and it addresses, okay. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Carroll. And I'd just like to chime in on this at this point too as well. I do support the 60-day as well, as opposed to the 45-day. And is that all? Anybody else wishing to speak on it? No? Okay.
Okay.
Next, Madam Clerk.
Council members, we will be voting on the effective date to be July 3rd, 2018. as an amendment. Please vote.
That's,
on the amendment to amend the legislation that is on the floor right now.
Yes, sir.
That's correct.
I'll clarify one more time for you guys. At the end of section 1, there will be a sentence added that says the effective date of this resolution will be July 3rd, 2018. Council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0 for that amendment.
okay.
Council members, I've received a second amendment this afternoon. I have a motion by Councilmember Hand, seconded by Councilmember DeFranchise. The request to amend is to add a section 4, that the owners will commence to clean the exterior of the premises on May 7th, 2018, including securing the building and awning, removing litter, overgrown foliage, and vegetation. I have a motion by Councilmember Hand, seconded by Councilmember DeFranchise.
Yes, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also would like to ask, would it be possible, is it possible to be able to secure the property with something, I don't want to say for lack of a better word, something to, a tape or a rope or something to surround the building as added safety? Can we do that? Mr. Walters, can we request them to do that? As a barrier?
I don't think that rope is gonna hang. When, over the last couple of years, they've had several break-ins over there. They, the back of the building is not observable by the ring road. They've pried open the back doors. They've actually tried to set fire to it a few times. They've been real good about re-securing it afterwards, and I don't think we've had that problem in a while. If they come in and clean it up, get the graffiti off of it, get the foliage off the building, if they maybe remove the awning, because that is the biggest threat that would exist if someone would happen to trespass, because that's what they'd be doing by going to that building. That would at least keep it safe.
Right, and that's exactly what I'm saying as far as a deterrent to not let people just simply trespass. Now they can just simply walk freely. So if you're telling me that that would not be a deterrent to put something around it, then I can rescind what I said and just ensure that they secure the building as best as they can.
Yeah, anyone that goes to the building is going to be there with not the best intentions. They do a lot of
For sure.
dumping of, they've dumped, maybe 100 mattresses behind the place. They actually dumped a couple of pig carcasses behind there. So it's been used as a location to get rid of your trash.
Right, okay. All right then, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilman Segura.
Thank you. Again, I'm completely in agreement with the urgency to get it cleaned up, and I just want to be sure that the amendment, as I just heard it, though, is in clarity with the owners to understand these items, because as Mr. Walter was just detailing items, I would hope that, and I don't know if to get it into the amendment or an understanding to understand that they know what these items are that we're expecting, and they don't go take care of something and then we come back, no, that's not what we wanted. We want to make sure that they clean up what we're asking, so I don't know how to get to that point. But then at the follow-up, guys, I need y'all to help. Can you do that in 3 days? Because, I mean, today is Thursday, you're talking Monday. Can you get this started?
Councilman?
Yes, ma'am.
It was to commence the cleanup on Monday. So the cleanup would start then. It wouldn't have to be completed by
I appreciate that, but I know how long it takes us to get contracts out. I'm asking them, even though they're in a different world than we are, can they still award a contract to the specifications that we are expecting it and get it work started on Monday? Bill or Lacey? Sure.
Council President, first of all, can you clarify with the amendment, in 60 days, does that mean demolition starts? Or are you saying this will come up again and we'll have an opportunity to come speak? Because I'm not clear on what the amendment does. It seems to say you're deferring what this resolution wants for 60 days. And what it wants is repair, demolition, whatever. So I guess.
Can I address that, Councilman Seer?
Yes, ma'am,
Okay,
please do.
so the charter says that resolutions and ordinances are effective 17 days after they're adopted. So when the council adopts this tonight, by virtue of the charter provisions, it would become effective 17 days later. What this does is it makes a later effective date, which would be on July 3rd. So rather than the 17-day period, which is, it's 10 days after publication, so that means 17 days because it gets published a week from tonight, right, Natalie? So it's providing for a later effective date. At that time, the city can demo the property.
And that's my concern. In other words, are you saying, let's assume my client, who's right there, is going to explain what they're going to do. When this came up tonight, we have an opportunity to speak, public hearing, obviously. On the amendment, are you all saying, okay, in 60 days, there's no discussion, it'll be demoed, either by us or by you all? Or will this come up for consideration again, where if we made progress and somebody's willing to work with us, things change?
I think we're saying that in 60 days, the city can take the steps necessary to demo the property.
With no input from.
A deferral is what you're, I think,
Correct, yeah.
speaking to,
That's-
right?
I'm
So
trying to clarify exactly what
This
happened.
is not a deferral. This amendment is to basically give the effective date, July 3rd, at which time the city can, enter into contracts or sign contracts for demolition.
And I guess my only response is, I mean, your amendment was voted on. We've already said that's not going to happen, I guess, in terms of how long it's going to take our loan to be processed. So,
Mr. Becknell, it doesn't mean that the owners can't come to the city and discuss,
right, that's what, yeah,
I mean, the thing can always be amended or,
correct. And that's what I'm asking Mr.
discussions
Patel.
can be had, negotiations can be had. But by adopting this tonight, it gives the city the authority to demo the property after July 3rd.
Yes, ma'am. And that's what I'm trying to clarify is, will the council be willing, if we make progress, can we come say, okay, the loan's, a month away, whatever, and stop the process from starting? Because at that point, you incur money, obviously, and it could affect liens against our property. So I'm just asking, what I don't want to have happen is in 60 days, all of a sudden, the building's being knocked down because you all signed some contract to do so without speaking to the owner.
Well, we'd have to give notice before we demoed, so that's always required by law.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Howe can address your question. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Mr. Rousseau.
The reason I said 10 days initially was just to coordinate groups. We can get on it and start something for Monday, okay? As far as it's not going to be cleaned up Monday, but we'll start Monday. But as far as the full list, I don't have a clarification on that stuff. The first I heard about the steps was today and the awning, so I don't even know what the problem is there, and I don't know if that really needs to be done if the building's, if it's not going to fall down, and it's not a hazard, can it wait till we demo the property? So those are the kind of things we don't understand. But as far as cleaning up the property, we'll have somebody starting on Monday. That's the 7th, right?
Yes.
She said, okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Councilman Segur, you have the floor, I'm sorry.
Okay, I was
have the
getting ready, but I think you had something, Lee? Oh, okay. Well, yeah, and that's good then, and that helps out to understand that come Monday, you will have workers out there to start doing some of the work. But I think it's still not clear as to what is the extent of all of the work that is maybe up here thought about versus him knowing he needs to do, and then the code enforcement department saying what they want. So how does that happen that we can have that clarity between the three of us?
I think you can add, if Mr. Walther approves of this, you can add to Councilwoman Hand's amendment that it be cleaned up in accordance with the recommendations of code. That they just did their presentation. They know what needs to be done out there. So if you added that to that illustrative list that Councilwoman Hand just offered, I think that would solve your issue.
And I think in simple terms, it's about code compliance. I mean, right now that property is blighted. Is it structurally sound? It's a cinder block building. There's no doubt that the walls aren't going to fall in right now. but there is a chance that the awning might. There's graffiti on it. It's a gathering place for litter and debris and probably a number of characters hanging out around the building. Can it be secured? I think if they would maybe block the driveways in there to keep people from being able to drive back there, that might help it. If they tear down the greenery from off the building, I mean, there's a number of things you could do to at least make it presentable and maybe less as a, what it is, an empty, abandoned, blighted property. And I think that's what we all want.
Exactly, and I do too. But then this is why I'm saying I want the developer to know that too, so that he does specifically address, like you said, in conversations with Mr. Howell, he has mentioned, cordoning off the driveways to keep vehicle traffic, but then there's still foot traffic. That's a different story. But the cleaning up of the shrubbery, I think he was shaking his head that was a good to go. The graffiti, at least throw some paint over it or something. So I think those are the things that he is good to go with, and if that's it, then I'm good to go too. I mean, I just want to make sure that we don't say, wait a minute, we intended this and you never did it, and he goes, I didn't know that. That's all.
Finished, Councilman?
Yes.
Thank you. And Councilman Reno, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, Mr. Walther, can we get a list of exactly what you want done? I mean, I'm kind of like Councilmember Segura. I'm kind of like, I want to make sure that we're both on the same page in order to vote on this amendment, because we could pass this amendment and he could say, well, I did A, B, C, and D, and you could say, yeah, but you didn't do, anything else, and we wanted these other things done.
I think the easiest thing would be if he's going to be out there Monday, I can come out there, I can bring James Mohammed out there, he can identify the weak parts. The obvious stuff is the green growing up, the graffiti on the side of the buildings, the trash and litter that's stacked up in the back. So some things will speak for itself. I think what the city wants is that when people drive past it, they're not in awe of some things you're not going to get rid of. You got boarded up doors, you got broken glass. Those things aren't going to be able to be hidden. But whatever they can do to make it look better, at least for the next 60 days, it might show an example of what they're doing, and if maybe 60 days comes in, they can come back here and talk to y'all about what's next.
Okay.
But I'll make sure that when we're out there, we'll get the most bang for our buck.
Can you give Mr. Howell your number?
I think we're on a
Oh, okay.
speed dial.
All right, great. Just wanted to make sure he can contact you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Yes,
What's
sir.
clear?
If we could have 1 second, the city attorney would like to clarify the amendment. Okay, so the amendment that was read in earlier, we will amend that to read as following. Section 4, that the owners will commence to clean the exterior of the premises on May 7, 2018, as per the recommendations of the Code Enforcement Department. Everybody's good? I have a motion by Councilmember Hand, seconded by Councilman DeFrances on the amendment as the clerk read into the record. Council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0. I have a motion by Councilmember DeFrances, seconded by Councilmember Segura for approval. Council members, please. Councilman Reno, you have the floor.
One more question, just for clarification. This could be brought up for reconsideration at the next council meeting, correct? So.
That is correct.
If the owner comes in, does everything that he says he's going to do, finds out from the lender, hey, we're going to get this loan, but it's not going to be until July 1st or July 31st, whatever, we could reconsider this and extend that date, that 60-day date, to 90 days or 120 days.
That's correct. Your council rules allow you to reconsider a resolution or an ordinance at the next regular meeting.
And any council member can put up that reconsideration. It doesn't have to be,
The prevailing side.
right, but any council member can put that up. It doesn't have to come from
The
an
mover and the-
at-large or the district
correct.
council. Anybody can put it up.
Yes, sir.
Just want to clarify.
Well, actually, no, I'm sorry, that's not correct. So what would happen, the procedure, you're talking about the procedure for reconsideration. The clerk would read the caption of this resolution into the record. It would stand before this council as if it had never been before this body. So you'd basically be looking at it anew, like you'd be looking at it for the first time. That's reconsideration. So it would not be some new piece of legislation that would be offered. That's not reconsideration.
Okay, so it can't be amended under reconsideration.
It would be looked at, yes, I mean, it would basically be, you would be looking at the same piece of legislation, and you could amend it that evening however you see fit.
I just wanted to clarify that it could be amended. I guess that was my only question. Or my main question.
Change all these amendments, yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Can I just add?
Sure. Go ahead, Mayor.
Just add one thing, if you don't mind. Yeah, any council person can bring something up, and this is up to you all, but I'm just saying what I think I've seen in all my years of public service, 12 years, and I think Councilwoman DeFrancis, having the same record, would agree with this. Usually it's up to the district councilman. If that person's not here, like tonight, it would go to the two at-larges. But that's y'all's business, but I'm just saying that's historically what I've seen here, if the at-larges would agree on that.
Councilwoman DeFrancis, yes.
Yes, historically, you're right, Mayor, but technically.
No, technically it's one
Right,
thing.
that's
but,
why I
you know,
clarified that you are
protocol.
absolutely
Right.
correct, that historically that is
Right.
exactly.
I
But you
just
have to
don't
be on
want
the
Councilman-
prevailing side.
Right.
That means if you vote against this, you can't bring it up for reconsideration. You can only bring it up for reconsideration if you voted for the ordinance, no matter whether it was the amendments or the other
I
ordinance.
just don't want Councilman Klein to look at this
No,
council
no,
meeting
no,
and
no.
say, nobody said, wait a minute, this is a District 4 issue.
Exactly.
Or yielding to the two
No,
at-larges.
no, you are 1,000%
Okay.
correct.
I know it
but
affects the whole city. I get that. But I'm sorry, I have a different mindset. It's a District 4 issue, which falls into the, I said if he comes back to the next council meeting, but it falls onto the two at-larges at that point, because it becomes city, which you represent that area, such as myself.
And I just wanted to, again, to reemphasize the point that our attorney made, that it is, again, it can be amended. You have to be on the prevailing side, meaning you had to have voted for it in order to bring it up for reconsideration, and it can be amended because it's a fresh piece of legislation. So I just wanted to make sure everybody was clear on what was said, because sometimes we bring in other issues, and then it gets muddied, and people aren't sure what we said.
The rule is spelled out very clearly in the council rules. It's Rule 33.
Exactly.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank y'all for that point, a noted point. And Mr. Becknell, did you want to make another comment?
I just want to make an offer, council. You all mentioned communication problems in the past. I wasn't not involved in those. Is it okay, Mr. Howe, if I volunteer to be available, being local? Okay, so my office is on Causeway Boulevard. I think most of you have my contact information. If not, if there's any questions, if you contact me directly, I'll get in touch with Mr. Howe or Mr. Vitale and get a response right away, and also give you status reports on what's going on with the property, so that you're not in the dark if some constituent calls you all.
That would be very helpful.
That would be helpful.
I'll be glad to do that, and I know most of you, so thank you very much.
If you will,
And I do
Councilman
appreciate
Segura's got a question for you.
Yeah, well, just comment, thank you for volunteering and happy birthday.
Oh. I won't tell you how old I am.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I appreciate that, Councilman. Yeah, I got to spend my birthday here instead of going out to dinner with my wife. Anyway, you all know where I am. I'll be glad to answer any calls, meet with anybody, the mayor, the council, the staff, whoever you need, answer any questions or get the answers if I don't know them. But most importantly, I think, knowing the process you all have to go through, like Mr. Brangan mentioned, if somebody calls you all, I know the pressure you may be under to get a response to your voters and constituents. So I'll be glad to get it as quickly as possible to help you all.
Thank you.
I do appreciate your consideration tonight and at least giving my client some time to try to resolve these problems.
Appreciate it. Thank you,
for
sir.
your time.
Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. Motion by Councilmember DeFranchise, second by Councilmember Segura on approval tonight. Council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0.
Next.
Item 10 is opening of bids. We have none. Item 11 is reclassification of zoning for final passage. Oh, I'm sorry.
9B.
So sorry. Item 9B is a public hearing regarding summary ordinance number 12,359, an ordinance approving the sale of a portion of the unimproved California Avenue right-of-way, Highway Park subdivision, Kenner, Jefferson Parish, Louisiana, as shown on the attached survey by Gilbert, Kelly, and Codier Incorporated, dated October 28, 2017. I have a motion by Councilmember Segura, seconded by Councilmember Wilmot, to open your public hearing this evening. Council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0. We're now in a public hearing, and I believe that the Planning Department has a presentation this afternoon.
Mr. Hebert?
The owner of the property is the city of Kenner. The applicant is Mr. A.J. Sotomayor with an address of 1109 Williams Boulevard, Kenner, Louisiana, 70062. The property consists of an 11,250 square foot portion of unimproved California Avenue right-of-way, measuring 50 feet by 225 feet and bounded by 21st Street to the north and 20th Street to the south. The right-of-way runs in a north-south direction and is adjacent to Square 505 to the east and Square 506 to the west. Much of the land in the area contains parcels of former airport buyout property that were purchased through a public auction held by the City of New Orleans on January 29, 2016. The majority of the lots in Square 505 to the east are owned by the applicant. That includes adjacent lots 8 through 10 and 13 through 16. The lots are currently undeveloped. Adjacent lots 11 and 12, also located in Square 505, are in separate private ownership and are also undeveloped. The owner of the lot submitted a letter indicating no objection to the sale of the adjacent right-of-way. Lots CC and BB2, located in Square 506, front the west side of California Avenue and are currently undeveloped. The lots are owned by the City of New Orleans. These lots were up for public auction by the City of New Orleans but not sold. On March 16th, the City of New Orleans submitted a letter stating objection to the sale of the portion of California Avenue right-of-way. Now, upon review of the application, the Kenner administration has determined that the subject property is not needed for a public purpose and therefore supports the sale. An appraisal of the right-of-way was performed by Juan Sandos and Associates dated December 19th, 2017, estimating the fair market value at $11,250. The applicant has agreed to purchase the right-of-way at the appraised value. On February 28th, the Planning Commission recommended approval. That concludes it.
Thank you. Next.
Any questions? Anybody else in the audience wishing to address the council this evening on item 9B?
Councilman Reyno?
One second, let me, hang on. Yeah, you can.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Hebert, you said New Orleans objected. Is that because they have a parcel there that they still own that has not gone to an auction? Was I looking at that property map correctly?
Yes, sir. There's two, actually 3 lots that the airport owns.
So would that property be accessible for them to sell?
Their objection was that Lot CC, they indicated that they believed the lot would be landlocked. However, we have no survey of that lot. We can't really determine if that lot would be completely landlocked or if there would be a portion that would extend beyond it.
And does the airport own DD as well?
Yes, sir.
So it's accessible from the 21st Street where it makes that turn onto California.
Correct.
And then the BB2 and the CC, the BB2 would be accessible from California Avenue.
Yes, sir.
On the other side. So it's really only a small portion of the,
It's Lot CC as they, what they identified as being landlocked.
okay. Okay, maybe I ought to ask legal their opinion. This wouldn't put us in any litigation, I mean, being that, you know, I mean, could they prove that it's landlocked? The lot CC? Because there is no street going to lot
Foshee?
CC. So, I mean, I'm just a little concerned that, I mean, could this be legislation against the city in the future if we agreed to this?
Ms. Foshee, if you would like to answer.
Councilman Segura was.
Councilman Segura?
My comment is that they're not landlocked. If you look to the west, they own land.
But
It's their land.
It hasn't been re-subdivided, so it's still 3 lots. Am I correct, Mr. Abear? It is 3 lots.
It's still 3 lots, yes, sir, but there has been, like I said it earlier, they provided us, we have no survey that actually identifies the exact location of those lots. So we don't know for certain whether or not Lot CC would be completely landlocked.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to my legal question for legal department to answer. Could this possibly put us in the litigation with somebody saying that we sold this right away and now that particular lot is not accessible because I'm looking at it as 3 lots, regardless of who the owner is. I'm looking at 3 lots here. And I can see DD's got access, I can see BB2's got access, but I can't see CC having access. So, you know, I mean, I hate to put you on the spot, but Ms. Foshee?
If I may, this was brought to the administration's attention when this first came up, and that was the very same question I asked. If you look at, and I may be calling the right, but the red rectangle and then the yellow almost rectangle. All right, so the red rectangle initially lined up on both ends with the same size as the airport's property. It was pushed in 25 feet on each end, so the amount of property originally requested was 50 feet longer. The city agreed to provide 50 feet less so that there was an access on either end. But on top of that, I think the real issue and the reason that the city administration proceeded with their recommendation despite the objection of the airport is that the airport is the only one with access to that property because that property is right on the airport access road. Right. If anyone else were objecting, I think we would have that issue. I think what you're talking about, we might have restricted it, but there is A, 25 feet of access on either end, and B, it is their adjoining land. So if for any reason they need access to it, they come in from the airport access road. So I think it's because of the ownership and not necessarily the location that we concluded that was a risk worth taking.
Okay, so, but we could be in for litigation if the airport puts this up as part of an auction property and people say, well, I'm not going to bid on it because it really doesn't have access, and then the airport says, well, we had to take, 10 cents on a dollar on what we would have normally got for this property, I just didn't want to put the city at risk. I'm listening, I'm all ears.
Anyone could sue us for anything. That's a lawyer answer. But on top of that, the airport really kind of went through the motions to make sure that they recorded their objection, but they could have tried to stop that. They could be here tonight to bring this to your attention if they really objected it. I think they have a good and diligent lawyer there who's making sure that something's in the record in case something goes forward in the future. But had the airport actually had an opposition, they had both appeal rights from the recommendations from the planning committee, and they would also be here tonight. So again, there's always a risk. Life is risky, but I think under this circumstance, I don't think we have that much exposure.
Okay. Mr. Abear, was somebody from the airport at the planning
Yes, sir.
commission meeting?
There was.
And they voiced their opposition at that point?
They did, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilman Segura, do you have,
Oh, we're still in a public hearing, I believe. So, no, I'm fine.
okay. Councilwoman DeFrances.
I just want to clarify this for myself as well. If you look at BB2, it does look like California does at some point, is contiguous at some point with BB2, California on the bottom end going north. What I'm seeing where we see the DD property is that although 21st Street ends, there is a portion left should they want to extend the street. Am I correct so far? That although the street may not be paved at this moment, it does look like 21st Street, after it curves and goes down, there is a portion that is not paved, that the unpaved portion is contiguous with a portion of CC. So technically, it could be paved and give it an access. Am I correct, or am I looking at this incorrectly?
You are correct. But again, we don't know for certain to what extent because we have no survey. This is
Okay.
just for visual purposes.
But for visual purposes, it does look like that, Mr. Hebert?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's what I needed to know. Thank you.
Board's clear.
I have a motion by Councilmember Segura, seconded by Councilmember Wilmot, to close your public hearing this afternoon. Council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0 to close the hearing. Have a motion by Councilmember Segura, seconded by Councilmember Wilmot, for approval. Councilman Segura.
Thank you. What this is a lot of property back in this particular subdivision that was part of the airport's noise buyout program 20, 30 years ago that came in there and bought property based on their noise level studies and to settle a lawsuit based on noise levels. So as they went around and bought out property, they then tore down the structures that were on those properties, which created a big open area and had its own noise problems because it didn't have buffers anymore to the residents that are still there. So they also put whatever it's the proper term, covenants on the land that said that these residential properties can never be used for residential use anymore. They can only be for commercial use. So we have property that the airport owned for 20, 35, somewhere around 30 years, never paid a penny in property tax because they're exempt. So they have finally put it out for auction 2 years ago, and the properties that were sold at auction clearly have started paying property tax and are looking for development of these properties for various uses that we're certainly entertaining. So the purpose of this little sliver of street that was never made a street, the city, and I've lived in that neighborhood for over 40 years now, and there was never a street, which you can see from the picture. So it's just allowing now a developer who bought almost a whole square of land an opportunity to get some additional land to present a project. Yeah, this is a problem that we're going to face in other areas of that subdivision when other developers come and want to develop the property that they bought at auction and want to put it into commerce, which is what, as the mayor said, we're looking for those revenue streams to help out. But these types of alienations, there are some others that will have to be done because of these bundles that the airport sold, which do have city property intermixed in them. So this is the most furthest one west in the subdivision. It's been a mixture of commercial before we had zoning, and so that's why they're commercial still right now. But now that the residents that were removed are removed and now have the need to put all of this back into some form of commercial is where the need to just, the gentleman wants to buy this little sliver of land to help his project out is of no harm to anybody in the area, because there's just nothing back there other than some commercial property already, as you can see from the picture. And I think it's been, fairly clear, as Councilwoman DeFrances was clear to point out, both on the south end, the north end, California Street still has portions that can access this airport property that they did try to sell, and for whatever reason at their auction didn't sell, but they will move it forward later. But as I was trying to also relate to, remember, they own all of the property parallel to their CC and DD, whatever those numbers were, on the west side. It is airport property. It may be called partially the airport service road, but it is their property. So that airport service road is used as a public street. It's not a private road. It's just owned by the airport. So there's no issue, as I can see, and I appreciate legal's help to clarify that there's no problem of land locking anybody. And as Ms. Fauci recommended, and Jay emphasized and said, that the airport was present at planning, even though they put in the letter of objection. It sounds like they didn't make no strong push to object. They just were there to represent their objection. Is that correct? And so they're not here tonight, and we know when we have issues with the airport that they do have an interest in, they show up. They have been here in fold for many times when they clearly have an issue. So I don't think this is an issue for them, and I would strongly encourage my other council members to support this so we can look to take this and start moving it forward to bring in more commercial property use. Thank you.
Councilwoman DeFrances, you have the floor.
I have a quick question for Mr. Aber. Forgive me, I should have asked it earlier. The small green portion that someone else owns, without mentioning that person's name, that small green portion, that gentleman has no problem with our moving forward. Is that correct? I want to make sure I understood you correctly.
That's correct.
Okay, that was important to me because of where it's positioned. So he absolutely has no problem with us, with this council moving forward.
He provided us in writing a letter of no objection.
Perfect, that's what I needed to know. Thank you.
And the board is clear, Madam Clerk?
Yes, hearing no further discussion, council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0.
Next.
Item 10 is opening of bids. We have none. Item 11 is reclassification of zoning for final passage. We have none. Item 12 is other ordinances for final passage. We have none. Item 13 is resolutions and motions by council members. Item 13A is a resolution ratifying the appointment of Lucretia D. Wilkerson as an Assistant City Attorney for the City of Kenner. I have a motion by Councilmember Wilmot, seconded by Councilmember Carroll. Hearing no discussion, council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Item 13B is a resolution authorizing the placement of temporary signs on Kenner public property advertising Cleanup Kenner Day, hosted by Kenner United Incorporated. I have a motion by Councilmember Hand, seconded by Councilmember Carroll. Council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Item 14 is items removed from the consent agenda. We have none. Item 15 is acceptance of contracts and similar matters approved by the mayor. Item 15A is summary ordinance number 12,360, an ordinance ratifying the Blue Cross Blue Shield of Louisiana policy and rates for health insurance coverage for the City of Kenner employees, retirees, dependents for the fiscal year July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2019, as set forth in their proposals. I have a motion by Councilmember Segura, seconded by Councilmember Hand. Hearing no discussion, council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Item 15B is summary ordinance number 12,361, an ordinance accepting the lowest responsive bid received from Vulcan Incorporated, doing business as Vulcan Aluminum, for 2-year contract to supply aluminum sign blanks on an as-needed basis in accordance with seal bid number 18-6426, and an amount not to exceed $40,000 for the Department of Public Works. I have a motion by Councilmember Hand, seconded by Councilmember Segura. Hearing no discussion, council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Item 15C is summary ordinance number 12,362. An ordinance accepting the lowest responsive bid received from W.J. Blocher Company LLC for a 2-year contract to repair and maintain street lighting on the I-10 within the municipal limits of the city of Kenner on an as-needed basis in accordance with seal bid number 18-6422 and an amount not to exceed $150,000 for the Department of Public Works. I have a motion by Councilmember Wilmot, seconded by Councilmember DeFranchise. Hearing no discussion, council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Item 15D is summary ordinance number 12,363. An ordinance accepting the lowest responsive bid received from Semsco for a 2-year contract to furnish frames and grates on an as-needed basis in accordance with letter bid number 18-1571 and an amount not to exceed $15,000 for the Department of Public Works. I have a motion by Councilmember Carroll, seconded by Councilmember Segura. Hearing no discussion, council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Item 15E is summary ordinance number 12,364. An ordinance accepting the lowest responsive bid received from Atacapa Services LLC for a 2-year contract for cleaning and flushing of subsurface drain lines and drainage structures on an as-needed basis in accordance with seal bid number 18-6421 and an amount not to exceed $150,000 for the Department of Public Works. I have a motion by Councilmember DeFranchise, seconded by Councilmember Wilmot. Hearing no discussion, council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Item 15F is summary ordinance number 12,365. An ordinance approving an amendment number 1 to the professional agreement between the City of Kenner and Blue Williams LLP. I have a motion by Councilmember Segura, seconded by Councilmember Hand. Hearing no discussion, council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Item 15G is summary ordinance number 12,366. An ordinance accepting the lowest responsive bid received from Alternative Signs and Graphics LLC in the amount of $13,990 to fabricate and install sign for Chateau Estates Lakefront Entrance Alternate Number 1 in accordance with letter bid number 18-1567. I have a motion by Councilmember DeFranchise, seconded by Councilmember Wilmot. Councilmember DeFranchise?
Yes, ma'am. I guess I need to talk to the administration. This includes the actual wall as well as the signage that's going to be placed at Chateau Lakefront. Is that correct, sir? Mr. Schreiner?
Yes.
Yes?
This is just the sign. This is just the sign. This is for 2. There's polystyrene signs. This is all this covers. The foundation's going to be done in-house.
Okay, but the walls will be done as well, the entrance walls as well, that we had to tear down because they were no longer, safe and were actually in need of repair. So that will be done in-house. This will not cost us anything extra, and the signage that we're approving tonight will be in addition to the fabrication that the Public Works Department will be doing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, I just want to make sure that people at Chateau Lakefront understood that they were going to get their wall back as well. Thank you.
Council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Item 16 is ordinances and resolutions in summary for first reading. Item 16A is an ordinance amending Chapter 15, Traffic and Motor Vehicles, Article 2, Section 15-21 of the Kenner Code of Ordinances. Item 16B is an ordinance ratifying the policy and rates for commercial property insurance for the City of Kenner for the policy year June 1st, 2018 through June 1st, 2019. Item 16C is an ordinance accepting the lowest responsive bid received from Bayou Tree Service to provide tree work on an as-needed basis in accordance with seal bid number 18-6425 and an amount not to exceed $30,000 for the Department of Public Works. Item 16D is an ordinance accepting the lowest responsive bid received from Nortex Concrete Lift and Stabilization to provide pavement lifting on an as-needed basis in accordance with seal bid number 18-6423 and an amount not to exceed $30,000 for the Department of Public Works. Item 16E is an ordinance accepting the lowest responsive bid received from Han Enterprises Incorporated to furnish and install new playground at Wentwood Playground in accordance with seal bid number 18-6419 and an amount not to exceed $23,454 for the Department of Parks and Recreation. Item 16F is an ordinance accepting the lowest responsive bid received from Double M Feed Garden and Pet Supply for a 3-year contract to supply grass, seed, and sod delivered to be used at various recreation facilities in accordance with letter bid number 18-1569 and an amount not to exceed $40,000 for the Department of Parks and Recreation. Item 15G is an ordinance accepting the lowest responsive bid from B&H Photo to furnish 23 UBIQUITI UNIFI UAP AC-HAD wireless access points for the city in an amount of $6,647 in accordance with telephone bid number T-18-2585 for the Department of Information Technology and Telecommunications. Item 16H is an ordinance accepting the lowest responsive bid received from W.J. Blocher Company, LLC, for a professional services contract, labor only, for lamps, fixtures, and wiring for all city properties on an as-needed basis in accordance with seal bid number 18-6424 and an amount not to exceed $150,000 for the Department of Public Works. Item 16I is an ordinance approving the plan of the re-subdivision of lots 7A1, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14-A, and 17, Plot S, and lots 47, 48, 49, 50, and 51, Square 226, and into lots 7A-2 and 14A-1, Plot S, Crestview Office and Industrial Park. Item 16J is an ordinance approving the plan of re-subdivision of lots 137-A into lots 137-B and 137-C and 137-D, Bainbridge Office and Industrial Park, which lot is owned by the Airport Motel, LLC. Item 16K is an ordinance declaring various properties no longer needed for public purpose and authorizing the sale of the properties by public auction as per the terms of the intergovernmental agreement with Jefferson Parish. Item 16L is an ordinance adopting the operating budget for the City of Kenner for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2018 and ending June 30th, 2019, and providing for related matters. Item 16M is a resolution amending Kenner City Council Rule 22 regarding the consideration of items brought from the floor and not the agenda. Item 17 is reports from the council and/or special committees. Hearing none.
Well, I'd like to speak on that.
Okay.
Just a reminder, and I know the mayor touched on it earlier, that we have the live music every Friday, except I believe this, well, we do have it this Friday as well, May 4th. It's going to be a combination in Kenner's Heritage Park. May 4th, you have 90 Degrees West is going to be the band. May 11th is David Baptiste and the Gladiators. May 18th is No Idea. May 25th is Weathered. So you have a band every Friday night. That's nice. And there's no charge, no outside food or drink, though. And also, during the month of May, you have free movies every Saturday. That's on, the music was actually on Fridays. On Saturdays, you have movies in the park. Now, May 5th, I understand, is no longer going to be, the movie's not going to be aired because we have a conflict. But May 12th, we have Cars 3. May 19th, Despicable Me 3. May 26th, Moji Movie. So we have a lot of events that are playing there, and I think it's good to know. I just wanted to air that and make sure that the public is aware. You know, good stuff. So the board is clear. Next.
Yes, sir. Item 18 is new business. We have none. Item 19 is unfinished business and motions to reconsider or remove from a tabled position. We have none. Item 20 is persons wishing to address the council on special subject matters.
And first, we have Mr. Ziwi, and he has a handout, I believe.
Yes. Let me hand this out before we start his time, please.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Jack Ziwi, 3221 Illinois in Kenner. Doing some research, I've already gotten a lot of cooperation, a lot of help from the administration. This morning, I got cooperation and help from the police department. My question to each of the council members, if you refer to page 2 of the handout, I'd like you to focus on residency, section 4.33. And I'd like to hear from each of the council members on the public record as to what is your understanding of that charter requirement.
First off, Mr. Ziwi, I'd like to make sure that the council members are aware. They don't have to answer any questions, but if they like to do so, they may do so.
That's fine.
Okay?
And let me just add, Mr. Ziwi, too, I think you're really asking a legal question, so that may be more appropriately directed to me.
Well, we already had that opinion. That's not an issue. I don't disagree with it. I wanted to get their opinion. They're the legislative branch. I'd like them to hear what they have to say about it.
I'm just saying
If
that,
they can't, they can't.
I'm just saying the lawyers, the city attorney interprets the charter
Right.
for them. So
Okay.
they can't give legal opinions.
Thank you, Ms. Roussel, and I believe that
So
that's
do you want to put your, would you want to put your opinion on the record and be done with it? Is that fine?
Sure.
Okay.
I'd be happy to. I think I've done that before. I think we
I
addressed this
understand.
last year.
We've had the conversation.
Yes, sir.
I wanted to hear from them.
Well, do you want to hear from me?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so that section of the charter does require that directors and board members directors, department heads be residents of Kenner unless, there's 3 exceptions to it. The first one is that there's a special hiring ordinance which allows them to reside elsewhere. Secondly, there's a state law that allows them to live elsewhere. And third, it is the first 6 months of their appointment, they don't have to reside in Kenner. But looking at the charter itself, the use of the word resident, it appears only in 4.33 of the charter. Elsewhere in the charter, there are other sections, such as section 3.03, 5.02, 8.02, that use the term qualified elector or elector, right? So
These guys.
it is our position, correct. It is our position. So the mayor has to be a qualified elector.
Sure.
To qualify, and council members, also the police chief, as well as the members of the civil service board must be qualified electors. It doesn't say must reside in Kenner, it says qualified electors. So it's our position in the legal department that there's a difference between residency and elector. And, you know, usually you're registered to vote where you're domiciled. And you can have one domicile, you can have many residences. So that's basically our position, is that the charter intended 2 different rules. And department heads residing, that means having an address. I mean, the definition of residency is, and you have to look to that, Mr. Ziwi, because the charter does not define residency, right?
No one does.
If you look to Black's Law Dictionary,
I understand.
a resident's a person who lives in a particular place or a person who has a home in a particular place. So our interpretation is that if they have an address in Kenner, that's residing in Kenner.
So conceptually, I could be the director of public works. I could have a domicile in Tennessee. I could fly in on Sunday, stay at the Hilton Hotel, work here all week, fly home on Friday, and that would qualify me as complying with 433.
Mr. Ziwi, I don't want to answer a hypothetical.
Well, that's just a question.
I know, but I'm not gonna answer that question. I mean, I don't think we have any directors that reside in Tennessee and fly in and use hotels as their home.
I understand.
Or their residence.
Well, I'll give you an example. The Kenner Police Department has a 20-mile circle around this city. If you employed by the Kenner Police Department and you're within 20 miles, you get a take-home car and other benefits. If you're outside of 20 miles, you don't get the take-home car. They understand what resident means.
Right. And there's other departments, there's other police departments that provide incentives such as that.
Right.
For residing within your municipality.
Sure.
So, I mean, it's been challenged before, but, you know, this is our legal position. I know, you know, many may disagree with it, but this is the opinion of city attorney's
So
office.
if we had the word domicile instead of resident, it would be clear.
Correct.
Okay.
It would be different. It would be different.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ziwi. Next, Mr. Murillo.
Al Morella, 4260 East Loyola Drive, 5th District, 46 years. I want to direct this to the mayor. First of all, Mayor, I appreciate your efforts in trying to correct this scheduling conflict concerning Memorial Day and Veterans Day. While I'm on the subject, I want to ask you the reason for Ken Maricoli's departure. Now, I don't need any specifics. I just want to know, since he's my employee, I want to know whether he moved on or was he terminated. Simple question.
It's a personnel issue, but he did resign.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Okay, I want to talk about the fire at Kenner Junior High. At the last meeting, I wanted Fire Chief Bergeron to come up here and give us an update, and for whatever reason, he didn't want to go on the record, so he talked to me off the record. So now I'm going to put it on the record how he responded. At that time, it was an ongoing investigation. The state was in on it. And since that time, the new developments recently in the news, 2 arrests have been made, 2 teenagers. It didn't take a rocket scientist to find out that it was arson. But the next thing we need to know, and I hope we do know pretty soon, what the motivation was behind that arson, okay? Now, I want to talk about the recent runoff election on the 28th involving the 1st District. There are allegations out there that Councilman Carroll's opponent, there may have been election fraud. Now, all I want to say is this. I'm going to invite David Weathersby to come to this council and clear the air on this issue. Because if this is true, this is a sad day for all the residents of the city of Kenner because it's an assault on our democracy. Now, I think since he ran for that seat, and Councilman Carroll only won the runoff by 28 votes, I think we, the people of Kenner, need to get these allegations straightened out. We need to get the air cleared. So, Mr. Weathersby, if you watch the replay of this meeting, come on down. Anybody got any comments, any questions? Thank you.
Mr. Greg Teft.
My name is Greg Taft. I live at 3720 West Loyola Drive. My questions is actually going to be to the administration because at the other night at the civil service meeting, there was some talk about what was going on with some of with the ex-fire chief. And I found, I realized then that we had an internal auditor, and my question basically is of the background of the internal auditor, and is this worthy, for example, whether it was in loss prevention or internal auditing, because based on the comments from Ms. Fauché, that there was some things that was found that really should have been found long ago. So I'm not disputing the position of the internal auditing as much as the experience, because it sounds, what I got out of the meeting was there may be some other hidden issues that may need to be routed out, and it would take someone with a lot of loss prevention or internal auditing to do. So I don't know if you can give me that information on the experience, or
I'd be happy to get you a copy of the resume.
that would be great. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Teft. Mr. Richard Brown. Thank you. Mr. George Brannigan. He's gone. Ms. Liz Clark.
Good evening. I would like to address the council, the mayor, and everybody up here.
If you give your name and address, ma'am.
My name is Liz Clark, and my address is 427 Duncan Street, Kenner.
Thank you.
And I would like to address all of y'all tonight about an ongoing concern that I have in the district that I live in. I would like to know, when will Kenner start by having grants that are geared towards urban development in District 1 that would help with the homes that are impoverished, the lack of programs that are in our area for our youth. There's nothing in my part of Kenner, not a bank, not an urgent care, not a pharmacy, nothing. There is nothing. The part of Kenner I live in is the part of Kenner that Kenner forgot. This part of Kenner has been stuck in time for over the past 30 years. There's no decent sidewalks, no decent street, there's no libraries. I see little kids walking on a levee to go to St. Rose to use their library. There's nothing in my part of Kenner, and I don't think that's fair. I think that this is the part of Kenner that Kenner just pooped on and left in time. When every other part of Kenner back here is moving forward, the houses are in shambles, the people don't make the money. There's nothing. There's no kind of economic development. There is nothing. And it's sad to say that this is a government, and when it gets to a certain street in Kenner, everything cuts off when it's going towards Rivertown. Rivertown is not like Laketown. For Laketown been getting money, and it's been growing, moving forward. There's concessions. Not even our playgrounds are up to par. It is sad, and I just ride around and I look at the different stages of progress that are going through Kenner. Y'all celebrating 163 years of Kenner, but I don't see nothing up there in Kenner's 163 years where it shows one African American that even lived in Kenner. We were here 163 years ago because the man Kenner and his family were slave owners. All of us didn't leave. And all of us didn't just come here and pop up like daisies because we were ex-slaves. My ancestors been here. My papa was born 1880 and died 1990. And a level of disrespect from this government that goes to the people that look like me in District 1 is just sad. And even if they don't look like me, the rest of them that's been there and their families been there, it is sad that the funds don't travel out of the way and there's no kind of development. It is sad and it's disrespectful. And that is all I have to say. And I would like to know, one day, will all of y'all get together and take a tour through District 1 where I live at? Because I was born in the 60s. My parents were born in the 40s. When they were in school, they got the hand-me-down books from the white schools. And all of the pages and stuff weren't in there. When I went to school, a lot of us was leveled as level 3, special ed, slow learners, when we were not. So the generation of education does not travel on. My daughter was fortunate to go to a Catholic school. She got the education that I didn't get. But a lot of kids that go to Washington Elementary, G.T. Woods, and other schools that are in the black neighborhoods, they don't get the funding like y'all Kenner Discovery. These are underprivileged, underfunded schools. What are y'all going to do about that? A straight-up answer, honest answer. It's so much that y'all are left behind that this government moves every other part of Kenner forward except for that part of Kenner. It is sad. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, ma'am. Mayor Zahn?
I thought she was addressing it to the administration. I was just going to answer some if she wanted to stay at the podium.
Ma'am, would you like to hear from the mayor?
Yes, I would like
If
Okay.
you would like to come up to the podium, back to the podium, please. Sure. Mayor Zahn?
I'm just assuming you're talking about past administrations because I think Councilman Carroll would agree with my statements that I'm ready to say. As of just this past Saturday, it's probably the first time a mayor of Kenner has walked into District 1 to support the District 1 councilman by knocking doors and also bringing members of the administration that offered to go down there, along with some of his colleagues that are sitting up here, to actually make sure that you get the right representation in District 1. I kind of take offense if you're telling it to me, and I'm hoping you're telling it to someone else.
Let me clarify myself. Previous administration.
Thank you. Then I don't take offense.
Not for Kenner, and I'm gonna just clarify this again. For municipal,
And I think
local, state, federal.
right. And I think you would see that over the last year that Rivertown has taken a little bit of a turn because of the working relationship of your district councilman. That's why I supported him, not to mention he's a friend, but the leadership that he has had in District 1 and working with my administration to make sure that those things in District 1, specifically Rivertown, moves ahead. There's a little bit of a change in Rivertown. Rivertown has a hotel motel sales tax. that actually goes into that area to redevelop it. We're actually working with Greg Carroll right now to get the sign up. I think him and I just chose the colors on it that will actually say the entrance to Rivertown. And as I started off, I don't know if you were here earlier, the numerous things that we have in Rivertown, just this weekend, we keep trying to put those things back and increasing the farmers market. And look, every resident of Kenner is invited to join in that. So if you just give us a little more time, I think you'll see that we are very diversified with this administration. We will do exactly what needs to be done for all residents of the city of Kenner, and we will continue to do that. So I appreciate that you clarified that it was past administrations, hopefully past councils too. Because I can tell you, this whole council works with every area of Kenner. Myself, Councilman Wilmot, and Councilman DeFrancis are elected by everybody in the city of Kenner, along with our chief of police. So give us a little more time working directly with your district councilman to make some more changes throughout all of Kenner. But what you're pointing at, District 1, we appreciate those comments.
Well, I wanted to bring that to y'all face to face.
No,
I don't want to sit there
Right.
and scrutinize y'all behind.
Well, we're doing it,
the name on
but we are doing it.
y'all. I wanted you to know who had the grief and who had the complaint, and that's me,
Right.
Elizabeth.
But we're going to work on it, though. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilwoman DeFrances.
I was just going to point out a couple of things. First, you're right. One of the parks, especially one of the children's park, had been ignored. I'll be honest with you, I had to push Mr. Miracle.
Microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry. I know, I'm so used to talking ahead. I had to push Mr. Miracoli very hard because the Four Cs, which is the oldest civic group in District 1, had approached me because Mr. Miracoli had done nothing about replacing swings and other things at, I believe it's Roseminer Park. And so we had to push him really hard, unfortunately, to do something that should have been done a long time ago. So the lady is very correct in that sense that some of the areas had been ignored, but not necessarily because of the administration or this council, but because certain other people didn't do what they should have done. That's number one. Number two, at one point we had a very, very small library actually in District 2, believe it or not, and it was next to one of the little tire stores. It was a small, small library. And once that was closed, it was never reopened, and nor did they put another library in District 1 or District 2 for that matter. Our mayor used to be the councilman from our Jefferson Parish Council. And as many of you know, libraries are funded through Jefferson Parish. And about a year and a half ago, a group from South Kenner, from which District 1 in particular, had approached me about what we could do to try to get Jefferson Parish to help us have a library in District 1. Believe it or not, one of my hopes had been that had the Kenner High School not burned down, and had we been able to get, which I had spoken to our grant writer about getting additional grants and what we could do, I had hoped that maybe the first floor, with the help of Jefferson Parish and the help of our mayor and his many connections to Jefferson Parish, could work together to get a library possibly on that first floor if we had been able to renovate the building, but it has burned since. And Mr. Mayor, I would be delighted to work with you maybe if you could approach some of your fellow colleagues and friends on the Jefferson Parish Council to consider something that you and I had hope to work together to make a reality for District 1. Am I not correct?
Absolutely. And Councilman Carroll and I, again, have spoken to Councilman Spears, because he is the district councilman
Yes.
for Jefferson Parish for that area, to talk about if we get the funding in place to do some things with the Kenner High School, that would be something that maybe not a large library, but
that's what
somewhat of a library on that first floor to put it back into some type of city use.
And that was my hope all along before this
Exactly.
happened, and we had spoken.
Right. No,
I'd
I'm
spoken
with
to the
you too, but I'm just saying, most
administration, right.
recently during the
Right.
campaign, we talked to him about
Right.
that.
But again, so I just wanted to point out that we have had ideas and we have tried to work. A lot of it's funding. To be honest with you, a lot of the problem has been funding. And not only for Kenner, but also to get Jefferson to come to the table, as you said, because we have to work with them on projects that they actually have the funding control we don't have on those issues. So working together, I think we can make a difference. We've tried to make a difference. As you said, Rivertown has come a long way. It has a lot of ways to go. We do agree with that, but we are addressing those issues and working together with the civic groups and Councilman Carroll and other council people. We are more than happy to do what we can to to make many of these things a reality.
And let me add this, too. Someone was in my office yesterday, and I'd have to ask Chris or Deborah to refresh memory who it was. But we just brought up that probably the neglect in District 1 and District 2 from the past, not from us, when you talk about art sculptures and things like that, I have to agree with her. There has been a neglect in the past, and I'm not blaming
Agreed.
you because you were here, but I'm not blaming you. I'm blaming the administration that chose some of those things. So I think we need to look at Roosevelt Boulevard. I think we need to look at other areas of Rivertown where we can add some of that art sculpture. I know people, either you love it or you hate it, I get it. But if we put it in North Cantor, we should be working with these two council people to incorporate some of that into South Cantor also. Councilman Carroll and I had spoken about some statues that were being offered to us from Mr. Shane, and we wanted to go through and see actually what the pieces of art were on. And those are things that we need to look at for LaSalle's Landing in the near future.
And we have
But other
those-
areas too.
And we have those meetings on Jefferson Highway, so there are places where certainly they could be placed.
Absolutely. I'm just saying
Right.
one area that we talked about, but I think
Right.
if we look at Roosevelt Boulevard with your new lighting project that you did, Councilman Segura, and also maybe incorporating that somehow into Councilman Carroll's district.
Absolutely. And again, it takes all of us working together to make it happen.
Absolutely. I agree. But if you yield to my CEO, Council Chairman, because she has actually 2 projects that are going on in that area, maybe 3.
Got a bunch of stuff I
Okay.
want to talk about. Ms. Clark,
All right.
thank you so much for bringing that up. One of the things I think you're talking about, yes, ma'am, is aye. All right. One of the things that I think happens in areas like that is we end up with an economic downturn, and you end up with a food desert, basically. You can't walk to the grocery store. You can't get access to fresh food, and you end up, many neighborhoods end up with less than the most nutritious foods. That is one of the reasons for this revamping of the farmers market, because our new farmers market, in conjunction with the Market Umbrella Corporation, is giving, you get double your money for Louisiana Purchase Card. So you go and you get $1, you turn in $1 and you get $2 back. So it actually helps in areas like that. In addition, developing small businesses in that area, because you can't just take all the businesses out and put it someplace else and think the place is going to thrive. The Delgado Small Business group is coming into Rivertown to work with the residents in that area and throughout the city of Kenner, but in that area in particular, to help you develop small businesses, to be able to help yourselves and help your neighbors. Yes, we have some big capital projects. 2 of our biggest capital projects are going on right now. One is the South Kenner Drainage Project. That's about $2 million that's underway. And the other is the Compromise Street, the rebuilding of Compromise Street. That's $1.2 million. We do have a new director of recreation. He was actually out looking at Districts 1 and 5 today. This is his first day on the job, and that's kind of where he went. So there's a lot to do. But one of the bad things or good things about when you come to the microphone and you give us your name is now we're going to ask you to come help us, put you on some, we would love to have your help on this, because again, the people with passion like that, that's how we're going to change this. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That's right. Exactly. You are so right. Let's see what we can do to bring it back. That's what we need help with. Thank you. Let's do. Right. Let's work together and see what we can do to make that better. It will be at this point, and what I would like if Mr. Ince would you touch base with her, just give her some information, and then we'll keep you posted so when it becomes public. You're hearing about it before anybody else has. I don't even think we've announced that at this meeting. Mike, no. Mike, go talk to her, actually.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Ms. Clark, thank you very much. Ms. Clark, Gregory, right here. Well, thank you for coming, first of all, and I appreciate your passion. You and I are friends. We live less than 2 blocks away from one another. Our families have been in South Kenner for many, many years. So, you know, and I do look like you, for the matter of fact, you know, so we understand I understand perfectly some of the things, but I wouldn't agree with everything that you said. I mean, obviously, we would never be 100% satisfied the things that will ever go on or will ever be fixed as it relates to specifically South Kenner, where we are from. And those were mainly your concerns about that. You know, I don't want to talk about prior administrations since they're not here to defend themselves. But there have been some things done, even with the prior administrations, particularly as it relates to the Recreation Department. And the Buddy Lawson Playground has a new, the facade outside has been changed. The floor has been changed inside the gym. The air conditioning has been added. We're in the process of tearing down the concession stand outside to build a new concession stand. All of those things are being done. We put a tot lot over there. But one of the things, you know, sometimes that I have to defend District 1 is that it is not contiguous like the other districts. District 1 consists of not just South Kenner, but it consists of the Veteran Heights area. It consists of the Susan Park area. It consists of some of Loyola area. It consists of the Lincoln Manor area. So you can see the area is spread from the river all the way to Loyola and Georgetown, which each community having priorities that is different from the other. But to be able to address all of these, obviously, I'm not even going to say funding because you know how that is. I will say that the property right on, not a block away from your home, there is a clinic, a health clinic that will be moving into District 1 that's right now functioning on the other side of Fillmore Street, but it will be moving to District 1 right there. The Rivertown area, as you can see, more and more restaurants are coming. As far as the library, unfortunately, like the mayor said, the building burned, but you know, there may be something we can do as far as the library. From that standpoint, there are infrastructure projects right on Williams Boulevard to deal with the flooding. On the Pollock area, there's a project going on. So there are a number of things, and we have to make sure that it is spread throughout the District 1 that goes so far. Just to allude to some of the things Councilwoman DeFranchise said about the Rosemary Minor Park, we have changed the lighting out there. We've added benches out there. We've painted the area. It is a number of things that unfortunately we don't have the funding to do all at once. But it has been assessed of everything that we have to do. Now, should it have been done faster? I agree. It should have been done faster. But now we are moving in that direction, and I would say 60% of the things that needed to be addressed are completed. We have about 40% more to go, and we're going to get there, meaning the signage, something with the swings and all of that. But not only there, for the Lincoln Manor Playground, adding a tot lot, for adding computer labs at the gyms at Susan Park and Buddy Lawson. So while the library is something that a lot of people have a passion for, like yourself and other people, just to use my children, they've never really been in the library until they started college. They have computers and everything is right there for them. So they never had the reason to go. We did, our generation. So eventually that may turn into something of a library for people to come in, not only for young children, but for older people. So this administration, this council, we have identified different things, considering the resources that we have to be able to improve the area. And there's a plan. All of it won't happen during my term on the council, because this may be my last term being on a city council, or any council for that matter. But it will take people like yourself to keep me abreast of what is going on, to keep me understanding of what needs to be improved, and we will be doing that. I have gotten nothing but support from the council and the mayor to ensure that I would be remiss not to want to do things better for the district. But I have to understand also the process. I have to understand the budget. I have to understand that we have 4 different neighborhoods that also deserve the same thing. We've done a number of street projects in Lincoln Manor over the last 3 or 4 months, but there's more to be done in South Kenner also, particularly around your neighborhood. The area where a lot of the exodus has happened from the airport is something that we have to address. Even though there's no more homes there, we want to make sure the ambiance is still there and it's safe for everyone. So, like Ms. Fauché said, with you and people like you to be able to keep me abreast of all of that, I think we have a good plan going forward, like the mayor said, about the sign, about the sewage, about the drainage, and all of those things. It's going to take time, but we cannot forget about it. And you are correct. District 1 is where it all started in the city of Kenner. It is the historic part of the city. And, you know, those of us who forget the past are bound to make the same mistakes in the future, I heard someone said. So we cannot forget about that. Nothing will go right if we forget about District 1. It just won't happen, because all of those people that grew up, all of those families, African-American, Italian families, that was the rock of the District 1, people sometimes forget that they were the tax base for everything that has happened north of Airline. You don't think about it, but that was the tax base. They didn't make a whole lot of money, but what you see now in North Kenner is because of the people from District 1, and I'm proud to be part of that lineage. So, and yourself, along with your father and your family. So, just give us some time. Let's stay in touch. We see each other. I see you when you're walking your dog, you and your daughter. We always get a chance to catch up then. But let's continue the conversation and to continue to add things that we need to do to make sure that the city of Kenner grows from the river to the lake. And I promise you we will do the best that we can during our tenure here. So I look forward to working with you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Next, we have Zach Frigo. Name and address, sir.
Joseph Zachariah Frigo, 6 Colgate Place, Kenner, Louisiana. I'm here on behalf of Kenner United, and we want to thank you all for your passage of 3B and 13B, which allows our Kenner Cleanup Day to happen this month, May 19th. We'll be cleaning up Kenner from Laketown to Rivertown. We have many volunteers already. We've already got all of our sponsorship in place. Our primary sponsor will be Treasure Chest Casino. On May 19th, we're going to have people go to right over there to Veterans Park at 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock in the morning and sign up. When they sign up, they'll get a T-shirt, garbage bags, gloves, and other items to pick up. They'll be given areas. We have the city right now split up, I think, in 16 areas. We're still working on that. We're still working with different civic associations and other people to get that knocked down. We're mainly focusing on neutral grounds, rights of way, and parks. We also had concerns in neighborhoods. In Beachview, they want us to look at Newport. In University City, they want us to look at Clemson. In Driftwood, they want us to look at Martinique. And in Chateau, they want us to look at Vouvray. But I'm kind of leery of sending people into those streets. I don't want anybody picking up trash in people's front yard. That might make people feel bad. But we do want to focus on neutral grounds and parks especially. And the thing is, we're not saying Kenner's dirty. In fact, I think in the last couple of years, Kenner's gone the opposite way. We've gone really well as far as cleaning up, fighting blight. The last couple of years, the war on blight has been exceptional. I mean, they had a house next to me that was for 15 years was abandoned. And just 2 years ago, it was finally torn down. We've been fighting it for 15 years. And Dominic Impastato and the mayor have helped us get rid of that. And I was so happy that was done. And we are moving in the right direction as far as cleaning up. That street sweeper, I see it every single day. We are moving in the right direction. But the problem is the people, we need people, there's a lot of apathy among the people. We see it with our voter turnout, we see it with other things. We need to get the people to go out there, and if you see trash, don't take a picture and put it on Facebook. Pick it up and throw it in the garbage can. And that's what the cleanup day kind of brings about. We're just trying to get awareness for cleanup. And a lot of you might remember the 80s and 90s, our mascot was a garbage can. Mean Joe Green would go around the school, scare kids into cleaning up. And I like those days. We had, we were the green city. Everything was green. Our police cars were green. Our vehicles were green. We're the keep Kenner green and clean was our motto. And I'd like to return to that and just the awareness of the greenness of the city and just picking up the trash and this and that. And that's it. If anybody wants some more information or any suggestions whatsoever, please go to KennerUnited.org. That's Kenner. Everybody knows how to spell Kenner. United.org. And we have plenty of information online. We're seeking more volunteers. We've partnered with the Rotary Club, the Scouts BSA, I guess I can't call them the Boy Scouts anymore, members of the River Region Republican Women, and we also have the Lions Club of VFW and some men's club from local schools. We will be offering service hours for high school students and other students who require service hours. And again, anybody who wants to, please come out May 19th to clean up. You'll get a T-shirt. And afterwards, I forgot to say, the best thing is we'll be providing lunch when it's all said and done, again, at Kenner Veterans Park. And we've gotten sponsorships from Chick-fil-A. We have Raising Cane's. We have Two Amigos. I think we have Don Jose. We also have Italian Pie. We got a couple of places. And Pepsi Cola came in for a drink sponsor, and they're also providing a lot of water for everybody. So anybody would like to come out May 19th, Kenner Veterans Memorial Park? Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. And next, we wanted to ask, earlier we did a resolution ratifying the appointment of Lucretia Wilkerson to Kenner, along as the Assistant City Attorney. And if you will, just come up and greet us and say hello. Thank you.
Good afternoon. For all those that do not know me, my name is Lucretia Wilkerson. My prior employer was the Attorney General for the state of Louisiana, so I was the Assistant Attorney General there for 3.5 years. I was a law clerk before for 1.5 years. That's pretty much me in a nutshell. I'm originally from Jonesville, Louisiana. It's approximately 3.5 hours away. It's in central Louisiana I always tell people, between Natchez, Mississippi and Alexandria. So I've been in this area for the last 3 years.
Welcome aboard, and we
Thank you.
appreciate you coming here to Kenner, and your resume is very impressive.
Thank
So
you.
Thank you. I have a motion.
Move.
Second? We're adjourned.